Welcome to Fated Hearts, your destination for captivating paranormal romance audiobooks that will sweep you off your feet and into worlds where love knows no boundaries. I'm thrilled you've joined me today for an unforgettable journey. In today's full-length audiobook, we're going to continue diving deep into the passionate and supernatural world of Tanya and Nicholas, a story of betrayal, discovery, and the undeniable pull of fated love. This is a tale that started with heartbreak, a woman betrayed by those she trusted most, and transforms into something magical as Tanya discovers not only her own hidden supernatural heritage, but also the mysterious werewolf Alpha who gave her the greatest gift of all, their son. From fae royalty to werewolf pack dynamics, from single motherhood to supernatural awakening, this story has everything paranormal romance lovers crave: powerful alphas, mystical abilities, jealous rivals, and a love that transcends the ordinary world. If you're ready to lose yourself in this enchanting tale, please hit that like button, subscribe to Fated Hearts for more magical romance audiobooks, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new release. Content note: this audiobook contains mature themes, supernatural elements, and adult relationships suitable for listeners 18 and older. Now, settle in with your favorite cozy spot, grab a warm drink, and let me transport you to a world where betrayal leads to destiny, and where true love is indeed fated. Let's begin. The ice cream parlor Nicholas chose was a small, family-owned place on the outskirts of town that I'd never been to before. It was the kind of establishment that had been there for decades, with checkered floors and red vinyl booths that had seen better days, but somehow managed to feel welcoming rather than worn down. "How did you know about this place?" I asked as Nicholas held the door open for us. "Research," he said simply, but there was something in his tone that suggested it was more than that. "I've been keeping an eye on this town since that night 3 years ago." I stopped walking. "You've been watching me?" "Not watching," he said quickly, his eyes darting to Liam, who was already captivated by the display case full of ice cream flavors. "But I had my people do some basic monitoring. Nothing invasive, just making sure you were safe." I couldn't shake the feeling that something about that night was unfinished. The mate bond, I realized. Even before either of us understood what we were, some part of him had been drawn back to me, had needed to know I was okay. "Mama, look." Liam pressed his face against the glass display case. "They have cookie dough. And cookies and cream. And, what's that purple one?" "Lavender honey," the teenage girl behind the counter said with a smile. "It's really good, but most kids think it's too grown-up." Liam considered this seriously. "Can I try it?" The girl glanced at me, and I nodded. She handed him a small plastic spoon with a tiny sample on it. Liam tasted it thoughtfully, his expression going through several changes before he nodded decisively. "I like it. It tastes like Mama's new smell." I felt my cheeks burn. "Liam." But Nicholas was watching our son with fascination. "Your new smell?" "He's been saying that since we visited Veronica," I explained quickly. "Ever since my awakening, I guess, he's been commenting on how different things smell to him." "Enhanced senses," Nicholas murmured, crouching down to Liam's level again. "What else do you notice that's different?" Liam tilted his head, studying Nicholas with that intense focus that was becoming more common. "You smell like safety. And like home, but I don't know why." He paused, then added with typical 3-year-old honesty, "And you're really big." Nicholas's laugh was warm and genuine. "I am pretty big, aren't I?" "What else?" "Your heartbeat's really steady. Like Mama's when she reads me stories." Liam cocked his head slightly. "But faster right now." "Are you excited?" "Very excited," Nicholas said softly. "Meeting you is the best thing that's happened to me in a very long time." I watched this interaction with a mixture of wonder and terror. The easy way Liam was accepting Nicholas, the natural instinct that was drawing them together, it was beautiful and terrifying all at once. We ordered lavender honey for Liam, chocolate chip for me, and vanilla for Nicholas. I like to taste the quality of the base, he explained, and settled into a corner booth where Nicholas could keep his back to the wall and watch the door. Alpha instincts, I supposed. So, I said once Liam was contentedly working on his ice cream, you mentioned keeping me safe. Safe from what, exactly? Nicholas's expression grew serious. There are politics in the supernatural world, Tanya. Power structures, territorial disputes, old grudges. When someone as powerful as an alpha has a child, especially one with mixed heritage. He glanced meaningfully at Liam. It creates interest. What kind of interest? The kind where other pack leaders might see an opportunity to gain influence, or perceived threats to eliminate. His voice was carefully controlled, but I could sense the anger beneath it. And now that you've awakened as Fae. We're a target, I finished. You're under my protection, he said firmly. Both of you. Anyone who wants to get to Liam will have to go through me first. The possessiveness in his voice made something deep in my chest purr with satisfaction, but my practical side kicked in. And what does that mean, exactly? I have a life, Nicholas. A job in Portland, a routine. I can't just. I trailed off as I realized what I was saying. Could I go back to Portland now? Could I pretend that none of this existed, that Liam was just a normal little boy who happened to have unusually sharp senses? You're thinking about running again, Nicholas observed quietly. I'm thinking about protecting my son, I corrected. It's what I've been doing for 3 years. And you've done an incredible job. His voice was sincere, admiring. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I saw his expression change, jaw tightening, eyes going hard. I need to take this, he said, standing. I'll be right outside. Through the window, I watched him pace as he spoke, his free hand gesturing in what looked like controlled agitation. Whatever the conversation was about, it wasn't good news. Mama, Liam said around a mouthful of ice cream, is the nice man going to stay with us? I don't know, sweetheart. It's complicated. He smells worried now, Liam observed. And angry. But not at us. How can you tell? Liam shrugged. His smell changed when the phone made noise, but he still smells like safety when he looks at us. Like. He frowned, searching for words. Like when you see me fall down but I'm not really hurt. Worried but not scared. The sophistication of his observation struck me. This wasn't just enhanced senses, this was the kind of emotional intelligence that would be crucial for navigating pack dynamics. Nicholas came back inside, sliding into the booth with more tension than he'd had when he left. Problem? I asked. My beta just informed me that word is already spreading about Liam, he said quietly, keeping his voice low enough that normal human ears wouldn't overhear. Someone saw us at the grocery store and made some calls. My protective instincts flared. What kind of calls? The kind that mean we need to move faster than I'd hoped. He looked at Liam, who was still enjoying his ice cream, then back at me. Tanya, I need you to seriously consider coming back to my territory. My packlands are protected, warded. It's the safest place for both of you right now. Warded against what? Other packs. Fae who might see Liam as an abomination or a prize to be claimed. Humans who've learned too much about our world and decided to take action. His eyes were intense, pleading. I have a fortress built into the mountainside, completely self-sufficient, with guards and magical protections. You and Liam would be safe there while we figure out how to handle this situation long-term. A fortress, I repeated. I told you I was successful, he said with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. I wasn't exaggerating. Liam had finished his ice cream and was now listening to our conversation with the focused attention that meant his wolf instincts were picking up on the underlying tension. Are we in danger? He asked in that matter-of-fact way children have. I looked at Nicholas, then back at my son. Some people might want to meet you who aren't as nice as Nicholas, I said carefully. So we need to be extra careful for a while. Will you protect me? Liam asked, but he was looking at Nicholas when he said it. The question hit Nicholas like a physical blow. I watched his hands clench on the table, saw him struggle with emotion before he answered. With my life, he said simply. You're my cub, Liam. That means you're under my protection always, no matter what. What's a cub? A young wolf, Nicholas explained. Someone precious who needs to be kept safe while they grow strong. Liam considered this. Am I your cub because you're my daddy? The word daddy made Nicholas go very still. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Would you like me to be? Liam nodded seriously. Mama says I don't have a daddy, but I always wondered what it would feel like. You feel right. I had to look away, blinking back unexpected tears. The casual acceptance, the simple trust, it was heartbreaking and beautiful all at once. Then yes, Nicholas said. I'm your daddy, and you're my cub, and I'm going to make sure nothing bad ever happens to you. What about Mama? Nicholas's eyes found mine across the table. Mama too. She's. He paused, as if searching for words that would make sense to a 3-year-old. She's my mate. That means she's the most important person in the world to me, and I'll protect her just as fiercely as I protect you. Like how wolves mate for life? Liam asked. Exactly like that. I felt something shift in my chest, a click of recognition that went deeper than conscious thought. Mate. The word settled into my bones like it had always belonged there. So we're a pack now? Liam asked. We're a family, Nicholas corrected gently. The most important kind of pack there is. Liam beamed, apparently satisfied with this explanation. Can we go see your house now? I want to see where packs live. Nicholas looked at me questioningly. Tanya? I thought about my parents, still recovering from my father's heart attack. About my job in Portland, my apartment, the life I'd built. Then I looked at my son's excited face, at the way he was unconsciously leaning toward Nicholas like he was drawn to him by invisible threads. And I thought about the phone call, about threats I didn't fully understand yet, about people who might see my extraordinary little boy as something to be used or eliminated. How far is your territory? I asked. 2 hours north. In the mountains. And you're sure we'd be safe there? Safer than anywhere else in the world, he said without hesitation. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. When I opened them again, both Nicholas and Liam were watching me with identical expressions of hopeful patience. We'll need to talk to my parents first, I said finally. They deserve an explanation. And I need to understand exactly what we're walking into. Relief flooded Nicholas's features. Of course. Whatever you need. And I want to know more about this mate bond. What it means, what's expected, what? I gestured helplessly between us. What this is. We have time to figure it out, Nicholas said softly. All the time in the world. Liam clapped his hands together. This is the best day ever. I got ice cream and a daddy, and we're going to see a real pack house. His enthusiasm was infectious, but as we gathered our things to leave, I caught Nicholas checking his phone again, his expression darkening. How much time do we actually have? I asked quietly. Less than I'd like, he admitted. But enough to do this right. I won't let anything happen to either of you, Tanya. I promise. As we walked back to our cars, Liam chattering excitedly between us, I realized that my carefully controlled life was about to change completely once again. But this time, I wasn't running from betrayal and heartbreak. This time, I was running towards something that felt like destiny. The drive to my parents' house felt surreal with Nicholas following behind us in his sleek black Mercedes. I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, still processing the fact that this powerful, wealthy man was Liam's father and apparently my mate. The word still felt foreign in my mind, but my body seemed to accept it completely. Every time I'd been near him at the ice cream parlor, my skin had hummed with awareness. "Mama, is Daddy coming to meet Grandma and Grandpa?" Liam asked from his car seat, apparently having fully accepted Nicholas's new role in our lives with the adaptability only 3-year-olds possessed. "Yes, sweetheart. We need to tell them about some changes that are happening." "Are they going to be happy I have a daddy now?" My chest tightened. "I think they'll be very happy for you, baby." But as we pulled into my parents' driveway, I wasn't sure how happy they'd be about anything else I was about to tell them. My mother met us at the door, her face lighting up at the sight of Liam before her eyes moved curiously to Nicholas getting out of his car. Even from a distance, his presence was commanding, the expensive suit, the confident stride, the way he carried himself like he owned whatever space he occupied. "Tanya?" My mother's voice carried a question. "Mom, Dad, this is Nicholas Stone. We need to talk." My father appeared behind my mother, looking stronger than he had since his heart attack, but still moving carefully. His protective instincts kicked in immediately as he assessed Nicholas, and I could see him cataloging details, the obvious wealth, the age, the way Nicholas's attention immediately went to Liam. "Grandpa." Liam ran to my father, who scooped him up with a grunt. "There's my boy. Did you have fun with Mama today?" "I got ice cream and met my daddy," Liam announced with 3-year-old directness. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's eyes went wide, flicking between Nicholas and me. My father's face went through several expressions before settling on careful neutrality. "Perhaps we should go inside," Nicholas said quietly, his voice carrying that natural authority that made people want to listen to him. In the living room, my parents settled on the couch with Liam between them while Nicholas and I took the chairs opposite. I could see my mother's mind working, processing Nicholas's obvious wealth and sophistication, trying to reconcile this man with the story she thought she knew about Liam's conception. "So," my father said, his voice carefully controlled, "you're saying you're Liam's father?" "I am," Nicholas said simply. "Though I only learned about his existence today." My mother's protective instincts flared. "And where exactly have you been for 3 years?" "Mom," I said gently, "it's complicated. I never told him about Liam." "Why not?" she asked, confusion clear in her voice. I looked at Nicholas, then back at my parents. "Because I didn't know how to find him. And because..." I took a deep breath. "Because there are things about our family, about what we are, that I'm only just learning myself." My father frowned. "What do you mean, what we are?" This was it. The moment where I either told them the truth or created an elaborate lie that would eventually fall apart. Looking at their faces, at the love and concern there, I knew I couldn't lie to them. "Dad, Mom, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible. But I need you to listen, okay?" Over the next 20 minutes, I explained everything. Veronica, the Fae heritage, the awakening powers, Nicholas being a wolf shifter, Liam's dual nature. My parents' expressions ranged from disbelief to shock to something that might have been relief. "It makes sense," my mother said finally, surprising us all. "Liam's always been different, too smart, too aware. And you, honey, you've always had that intuition about people, that way with plants." She looked at Nicholas. "And you're not entirely human either." "No, ma'am," Nicholas said respectfully. "I'm what's called a wolf shifter. I can take the form of a wolf when necessary, and I'm the alpha, the leader, of my pack." My father was quiet for a long moment. "And this puts them in danger?" Nicholas's expression grew grim. "Unfortunately, yes. Children with mixed heritage are extremely rare. There are factions in both our communities that would either want to control Liam or eliminate him as a threat to the established order. Over my dead body, my father said with quiet ferocity. That won't be necessary, Nicholas said. I have resources, protection, a territory where they'd be safe while we navigate the political implications. You want to take them away, my mother said, her voice small. Just until the immediate threats can be neutralized, Nicholas assured her. My packlands are in the mountains, about 2 hours north. It's completely secure, and Tanya and Liam would have everything they need. My mother looked at me. Is this what you want? I thought about it, really considered the question. I want Liam to be safe. And I want to understand what I am, what we are. I can't do that here, not with people watching, waiting for us to make a mistake. There's something else, Nicholas said, his voice carefully neutral. Something you should know about the political situation we're facing. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then showed us a photo of a woman with platinum blonde hair and striking features. She was beautiful in a cold, sharp way that reminded me of broken glass. This is Scarlet Winters, Nicholas said. She's from a powerful pack in the Eastern Territories, and for the past year, our packs have been in negotiations for a potential alliance. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What kind of alliance? The kind that would be sealed with a mating bond, Nicholas said quietly. Between her and me. The words hit me like a physical blow. I tried to keep my expression neutral, but from the way Nicholas's eyes immediately found mine, I knew I'd failed. It was arranged by our respective pack councils, he continued. A political match to unite territories and strengthen both packs. Scarlet has been enthusiastic about the arrangement. And now, my father asked, reading the tension in the room. Now I've found my true mate, Nicholas said, his eyes never leaving mine. Which means the political arrangement is void. But Scarlet doesn't see it that way. What does that mean? My mother asked. Nicholas hesitated. She's been making threats. Nothing direct, nothing actionable, but she sees Tanya and Liam as obstacles to be removed. The protective surge that went through me was so strong that every plant in my parents' living room suddenly burst into fuller bloom. My mother gasped as her African violets doubled in size, their flowers becoming more vibrant than they'd ever been. Sorry, I muttered, trying to rein in my power. I'm still learning to control it. Scarlet has allies, Nicholas continued. Other alphas who would benefit from our packs joining forces. They won't give up easily on the arrangement just because I've found my mate. So you're saying this woman might try to hurt Tanya and Liam? My father asked, his voice dangerous. I'm saying I won't let her get close enough to try, Nicholas replied firmly. But yes, she represents a significant threat. She's powerful, ruthless, and she doesn't accept defeat gracefully. My mother was quiet for a long moment, then stood and walked to the window. How long? She asked without turning around. I don't know, I admitted. Until it's safe. Until we understand all the players and can neutralize the threats. Could be weeks. Could be months, Nicholas added honestly. My mother turned back to us, and I was surprised to see tears in her eyes. I just got you back. Both of you. And now. Mom. I stood and went to her, pulling her into my arms. This isn't goodbye, forever. It's just temporary. Is it? She asked. You'll be with your mate, in his territory, with his pack. Why would you ever come back? The question hung in the air, and I realized I didn't have a good answer. Would I come back? Could I, once I was fully integrated into Nicholas's world? Because you're my parents, I said firmly. Because you raised me, loved me, gave me everything I needed to become who I am. That doesn't change because I've found out where I come from. It just means I have more family now. My father cleared his throat. What about us? If these people are dangerous, if they know about Tanya and Liam. I've already arranged for security, Nicholas said. Discreet protection that won't interfere with your daily lives but will ensure your safety. And if there's ever a direct threat, you'll be brought to pack territory immediately. You can do that, my mother asked. Mrs. Morrison, I have resources that most people can't imagine. Keeping your family safe is my top priority. Liam, who had been surprisingly quiet during most of this conversation, suddenly piped up. Are we leaving tonight? Tomorrow morning, Nicholas said gently. That will give you time to pack and say goodbye properly. Can I bring Mr. Bear? You can bring whatever you want, Cub. The endearment made Liam beam, and despite everything, I smiled. My son was going to be okay. More than okay, he was going to understand what he was, learn to control his abilities, grow up knowing his father. We should let you pack, my mother said, though I could see how much the words cost her. And we should spend some time together before you go. The next few hours passed in a blur of packing, explaining, and trying to memorize the feeling of being in this house with my parents. We ordered pizza, played with Liam in the backyard, and pretended that everything was normal even though we all knew nothing would ever be quite the same again. As evening fell, Nicholas excused himself to make some calls, leaving us to have our private family time. I could hear him outside, his voice carrying through the window as he spoke to someone about security arrangements and travel logistics. He seems like a good man, my father said quietly as we watched Liam play with his toys in the living room. He is, I said, surprised by how certain I sounded. And this mate bond thing, how do you feel about it? I considered the question. Terrified. Excited. Like everything I thought I knew about my life was wrong, but also like everything finally makes sense. My mother smiled sadly. That's how I felt when I met your father. You're not supernatural, I pointed out. No, but love is still magic, honey. The most powerful kind there is. Later, after Liam was tucked into my old bed upstairs and Nicholas had left for his hotel with promises to return early in the morning, my parents and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea. I'm scared, my mother admitted. Not just about losing you, but about all of this. Supernatural communities, people who might want to hurt our grandson, political arrangements and threats, it's like something out of a movie. I'm scared too, I said. But I'm tired of running. Tired of hiding. For 3 years, I've been building a life around protecting Liam from the world. Now I have the chance to build a life where he can be everything he's meant to be, where he can be proud of what he is instead of having to hide it. And Nicholas, my father asked. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Nicholas he's Liam's father. And my mate. And I think I could love him if I let myself. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then we'll pray for your safety, and we'll wait for you to come home and tell us all about your adventures. With grandbabies in tow, I hope, my father added with a small smile. Dad. I protested, but I was smiling too. That night, I lay in my childhood bed with Liam curled against my side, listening to the familiar sounds of the house settling around us. Tomorrow, we'd drive into the mountains toward a new life with a pack of wolves and an alpha who claimed I was his mate. But tonight, I was just Tanya Morrison, home with her parents and her son, holding on to the last moments of the life I'd built before everything changed forever. In the morning, Nicholas arrived promptly at 9, looking every inch the powerful alpha in dark jeans and a wool sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He was patient as my parents fussed over last-minute details, as my mother pressed a container of homemade cookies into his hands for the road, as my father pulled him aside for what was undoubtedly a father-to-future son-in-law talk. Ready? He asked softly when the goodbyes were finally said and Liam was secured in his car seat in Nicholas's Mercedes. I looked back at the house where I'd grown up, where my parents stood waving from the porch, and felt the last piece of my old life fall away. Ready, I said. And for the first time in 3 years, I truly meant it. The first hour of the drive passed quietly, with Liam alternately chattering about everything he saw out the window and then falling into the sudden naps that 3-year-olds seem to master. I found myself stealing glances at Nicholas as he drove, his hands relaxed on the steering wheel, looking more at ease than I'd seen him since our reunion at the grocery store. "He's a good traveler," Nicholas observed softly, glancing in the rearview mirror at our sleeping son. Our son. The phrase still sent a little thrill through me every time I thought it. He always has been. Even when he was a baby, car rides would put him right to sleep. "Tell me about him," Nicholas said. "What's he like? What does he love, what scares him?" I settled back in the passenger seat, watching the landscape change as we climbed higher into the mountains. "He's curious about everything. Always asking why and how. I swear sometimes I think he asks more questions than I can possibly answer. He loves books, especially ones about animals. He's gentle, but he's got this inner strength that sometimes surprises me." "What scares him?" I thought about it. "Loud, sudden noises. Thunderstorms used to terrify him, but lately." I paused, realizing something. "Lately he seems less afraid of them. He'll stand at the window and watch them now, like he's trying to understand them." "His wolf senses developing," Nicholas said quietly. "Storms carry a lot of scent information, atmospheric pressure changes. He's probably learning to read them instinctively." The idea of my baby having supernatural senses should have been unsettling, but instead I felt a sense of relief. So many little things about Liam that had puzzled me suddenly made sense. "What else should I expect?" I asked. "As he grows up, as his abilities develop?" Nicholas was quiet for a moment, considering. "Enhanced senses, certainly. Better hearing, smell, night vision. Increased physical coordination and strength, though nothing dramatic until he's older. An instinctive understanding of pack hierarchy and dynamics." He glanced at me. "And at some point, usually around puberty, he'll experience his first shift. Into a wolf? Partial, most likely, given his mixed heritage. But yes, the wolf form is part of who he is." I absorbed this information, trying to imagine my little boy growing up in a world so different from the one I'd planned for him. "And the Fae side?" "That I know less about," Nicholas admitted. "Your great-aunt would be a better resource there. But from what I understand, Fae abilities tend to be more individualized: healing, plant affinity, elemental manipulation, enhanced intuition. Some develop precognitive abilities." "He already shows some of that," I said. "The plant thing, definitely. And he's always been unnaturally good at reading people. The combination of both bloodlines." Nicholas shook his head in wonder. "He's going to be extraordinary, Tanya." About 90 minutes into the drive, Liam stirred in his car seat, blinking awake with that momentary confusion children get when waking up in unfamiliar places. "Are we there yet?" he asked, the eternal child's question. "Getting close, cub," Nicholas said, and I noticed he'd started using that endearment more frequently. "Can you smell anything different?" Liam wrinkled his nose, concentrating in that serious way he had. "It smells like you, Daddy, but more. Like lots of you." Nicholas met my eyes in the mirror, and I could see his amazement. "That's the pack, Liam. My family. They're going to be your family too. Will they like me?" "They're going to love you," Nicholas said with absolute certainty. "You're their alpha's son. Your pack." The road had gotten narrower and more winding, pine trees pressing close on both sides. I could see why Nicholas had chosen this location for pack lands. It was remote, defensible, and beautiful in a wild, untamed way. "Tell me about them," I said. "What should I expect?" Nicholas considered his words carefully. "My pack is relatively young, most of the wolves are under 40. When I took over as alpha 3 years ago, I inherited a pack that had been poorly managed, scattered, lacking in cohesion. I've spent the last 3 years building something strong, something united. 3 years ago, I repeated. Right after. Right after I met you, he confirmed. The previous alpha died unexpectedly. I was his chosen successor, but I had to fight for the position. It was a difficult time. I tried to imagine him fighting for leadership while carrying the memory of our one night together, and something in my chest tightened with an emotion I didn't want to examine too closely. My beta is Marcus Rivera. You met him briefly at the ice cream parlor. He's been my closest friend since we were children, absolutely trustworthy. Then there's Elena Santos, our pack healer and Marcus's mate. She's incredibly skilled and will probably want to examine both you and Liam to understand your unique physiologies. Examine us? Nothing invasive, Nicholas assured me quickly. More like supernatural health checks. She needs to understand how your Fey heritage might interact with pack magic, and Liam's dual nature is going to require some specialized knowledge. Pack magic? Nicholas smiled. The bonds between pack members aren't just social or political, Tanya. There's actual magic involved. Shared strength, enhanced healing when we're together, the ability to sense each other's well-being across distances. When you become part of the pack, you'll feel it too. The idea of being magically connected to a group of strangers was both thrilling and terrifying. What if they don't accept me? They will, Nicholas said firmly. You're my mate. That makes you their Luna, whether they like it or not. But, his expression softened, I think you'll find they're good people. Loyal, protective, family-oriented. They'll see what I see in you. And what's that? He glanced at me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. Strength. Courage. The kind of fierce protectiveness that makes a perfect pack mother. Before I could respond to that loaded statement, Liam piped up from the back seat. Mama, there's a big fence. I looked ahead and saw what he meant. A high-security fence stretched across the road, with a guardhouse and an electronic gate. As we approached, the gate swung open automatically, and I caught sight of at least 2 people in the guardhouse watching us pass. How big is your territory? I asked, impressed despite myself. 15,000 acres, Nicholas said casually, as if that wasn't an enormous amount of private land. Completely secured, with patrol routes and safe houses throughout. The main compound is another 10 minutes ahead. The road continued to wind upward through dense forest, and I found myself mesmerized by the wildness of it all. This was nothing like the manicured suburbs where I'd grown up or the urban environment of Portland. This was primal, untamed, and somehow perfect for a pack of wolves. Daddy, I can hear singing, Liam said suddenly. Nicholas's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Singing? Like voices, but not words. Pretty voices. I felt my face senses stirring, and suddenly I could hear it too, not quite music, not quite voices, but something hauntingly beautiful carried on the wind. What is that? I breathed. Pack song, Nicholas said, wonder in his voice. They only do that for very special occasions. They're welcoming you home. The forest suddenly opened up, and I gasped at what lay before us. The compound was stunning, a massive log and stone structure that looked like a luxury mountain lodge, surrounded by smaller cabins and buildings that somehow managed to blend perfectly with the natural environment. Everything spoke of wealth, but it was wealth spent with taste and respect for the land. Oh my, I whispered. Welcome to Stone Ridge, Nicholas said, and I could hear the pride in his voice. As we pulled into the circular drive in front of the main lodge, people began emerging from various buildings. I counted at least 20 adults, all of them moving with that same fluid grace I'd noticed in Nicholas, all of them focused intently on our vehicle. They're all so beautiful, I murmured, watching the approaching crowd. Each person looked like they could be a model, tall, fit, with sharp features and alert eyes that seemed to catch every detail. Enhanced genetics, Nicholas explained. Shifter bloodlines tend to produce attractive offspring. It's an evolutionary advantage. Liam was practically vibrating with excitement in his car seat. Are those my new family, Daddy? They are, CUB. Ready to meet them? Nicholas parked the car and came around to help me out, his hand warm and steady on mine. The simple touch sent that familiar electric awareness through me, and from the way his pupils dilated slightly, he felt it too. The pack had arranged themselves in a loose semicircle, clearly organized by some hierarchy I didn't understand yet. At the front stood a man I recognized as Marcus, the beta from the ice cream parlor, and beside him a petite woman with warm brown eyes and skilled healer's hands. Alpha, Marcus said formally, inclining his head to Nicholas. Welcome home. Marcus, Elena, Nicholas nodded to them, then placed his hand on the small of my back in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. I'd like you to meet Tanya Morrison, my mate. The words sent a ripple through the assembled pack, and I felt the weight of 20 pairs of eyes assessing me. Some looked curious, others approving, a few seemed reserved but not hostile. And this, Nicholas continued, lifting Liam out of his car seat, is Liam Nicholas Morrison. My son. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as the pack absorbed this information, saw the exact moment when understanding dawned. Their alpha hadn't just found his mate, he'd found his mate and discovered he had a 3-year-old heir. Elena stepped forward first, her healer's instincts apparently overriding protocol. May I? She asked softly, holding out her hands to Liam. Liam looked at her for a long moment, his head tilted in that considering way he had, then nodded and allowed her to take him from Nicholas. Hello, little Alpha, she said gently. I'm Elena. I'm going to be your pack healer. Are you going to check if I'm sick? Liam asked with 3-year-old directness. Elena laughed, a warm sound that seemed to break the tension in the group. Only if you want me to. Right now I just want to get to know you. He's strong, she said quietly to Nicholas, and I realized she was somehow sensing Liam's supernatural nature. Both sides of his heritage. The balance is remarkable. Mama, Liam called to me, she smells like flowers and safety. More murmurs from the pack, and I saw several wolves exchange meaningful looks. Apparently Liam's ability to read people through scent was impressive even by shifter standards. Marcus stepped forward next, his expression serious but not unkind. Luna, he said to me, using what I assumed was the formal title for an alpha's mate. The pack welcomes you. Thank you, I said, trying to project confidence I didn't entirely feel. I'm still learning about all of this, but I'm grateful for your acceptance. There will be time to learn, Elena said warmly. And we'll be here to help you understand pack ways. Nicholas moved closer to me, his presence immediately calming. Why don't we get settled in first? Liam's had a long day, and there will be plenty of time for proper introductions later. Of course, Marcus said immediately. I've had the Luna's suite prepared, and we've set up the adjoining room as a nursery for the young alpha. Luna's suite? I asked quietly as we walked toward the main lodge. The alpha's mate's private quarters, Nicholas explained. Connected to mine, but with your own space, your own retreat. The lodge's interior was even more impressive than the exterior, soaring ceilings with exposed beams, massive stone fireplaces, furniture that managed to be both rustic and luxurious. Everything spoke of comfort and wealth, but also of a deep connection to the natural world. It's beautiful, I said honestly, and Nicholas's pleased smile made something flutter in my chest. I hoped you'd like it, he said. I want you to feel at home here, Tanya. Both of you. Elena led us up a wide staircase to the second floor, chattering softly to Liam about all the things he'd be able to explore once he was settled. She was clearly a natural with children, and I found myself liking her immediately. Here we are, she said, opening a heavy wooden door to reveal a stunning suite. The sitting room was decorated in warm earth tones with massive windows overlooking the forest, and through an open doorway I could see a bedroom with a king-size bed that looked like it belonged in a luxury resort. And this is for you, little one, Elena said to Liam, opening another door to reveal a perfect child's room. Someone had clearly gone to great effort. There were toys, books, a small bed with a handmade quilt, and stuffed animals that looked expensive but huggable. Wow, Liam breathed. Is this really mine? It's really yours, Nicholas said, crouching down to his son's level. What do you think? Instead of answering, Liam launched himself into Nicholas's arms, hugging him tightly. Thank you, Daddy. I love it. I watched the two of them together and felt my heart do something complicated in my chest. This was right. Whatever else happened, however complicated the supernatural politics became, this felt like where we belonged. There's a connecting door between the suites, Elena said quietly to me. The alpha wanted to be close, but he also wanted to respect your need for space while you adjust. I looked at her, then at Nicholas, who was showing Liam the view from his window. Thoughtful. Respectful. Patient. All the things David had never been. This is perfect, I said. Thank you. As if he'd heard me, Nicholas looked over, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my skin warm. We were going to be living in connected suites, sharing the care of our son, navigating pack politics and supernatural threats together. I was terrified. I was exhilarated. And for the first time in 3 years, I was exactly where I was Sue. An hour later, after Liam had thoroughly explored his new room and I'd unpacked the essentials, Susan knocked softly on our door. Dinner's ready, she said with a warm smile. The pack is eager to meet you both properly, but don't feel pressured. If you'd prefer something quiet in your suite tonight, I can arrange that. I looked at Liam, who was clutching a new stuffed wolf that had been waiting on his bed. What do you think, sweetheart? Want to have dinner with Daddy's family? Can I bring Wolf? He asked, holding up the toy. Of course you can, Nicholas said, appearing in the connecting doorway between our suites. He'd changed from his travel clothes into dark jeans and a forest green sweater that made his eyes look almost gold. The dining hall can be a little overwhelming at first, there are a lot of us. How many exactly? I asked, suddenly nervous about walking into a room full of supernatural strangers. 43 adults, 12 children, he said. But not everyone lives on the compound full-time. Tonight there will probably be about 30 for dinner. 30. I tried to imagine sitting down to dinner with 30 werewolves, wolf shifters. I corrected myself, and felt my palms grow damp. Hey, Nicholas said softly, moving closer. They're going to love you. And if it gets to be too much, we'll come back up here, okay? The gentle understanding in his voice reminded me why I'd been so drawn to him that night 3 years ago. Beneath all the wealth and power and alpha authority, he was still the man who had listened to me talk about feeling lost, who had made me feel safe and valued without expecting anything in return. Okay, I said, smoothing down my own outfit, a simple blue dress that Susan had assured me was perfect for a casual packed dinner. Let's go meet our family. The dining hall was on the first floor of the lodge, a massive room with long wooden tables arranged in a U-shape. The atmosphere was warm and welcoming, with soft lighting from wrought iron chandeliers and the scent of something delicious wafting from what I assumed was the kitchen. As we entered, conversations gradually quieted, though not in an uncomfortable way. It felt more like respectful curiosity than judgment. Nicholas guided us to the head table, where Dave and Susan were already seated along with several other wolves who carried themselves with the confidence of ranking pack members. Everyone, Nicholas said, his voice carrying easily through the room, I'd like you to officially meet my mate, Tanya, and my son, Liam. The response was immediate and overwhelming, applause, howls of approval, and what sounded like congratulations in several different languages. Liam pressed closer to my side, clutching his stuffed wolf, but he didn't seem frightened, just overwhelmed by the attention. Speech, someone called out, and others quickly took up the chant. Nicholas held up a hand, and the room fell silent immediately. The display of pack discipline was impressive and slightly intimidating. 3 years ago, I became your alpha during a time of uncertainty and change, he began, his voice carrying the natural authority I was beginning to recognize as his alpha presence. I promised to build something strong, something lasting, something worth protecting. Tonight, I want to tell you that our pack is about to grow even stronger. He placed his hand on my shoulder, and I felt that familiar electric connection between us. Tanya brings with her not just her own strength, but a connection to the Fey courts. Our alliance possibilities have just expanded exponentially. Murmurs of interest rippled through the room. I realized Nicholas was presenting our relationship in terms the pack would understand, political advantage as well as personal bond. And Liam, Nicholas continued, ruffling our son's hair, represents something unprecedented. A child with both wolf and Fey heritage. He will grow up understanding both worlds, bridging them in ways we can't yet imagine. What does this mean for the Winters situation? A voice called out from one of the side tables. The room went very quiet, and I felt Nicholas tense beside me. This was clearly pack business I didn't understand yet, but the name Winters made my stomach clench. Scarlet. It means, Nicholas said carefully, that our previous arrangement is null and void. I've found my true mate, which supersedes any political considerations. And if she doesn't accept that? The same voice, persistent. Then she'll have to deal with me, said a new voice, and I turned to see Dave standing. His tone was mild, but there was steel underneath it. As will anyone else who thinks they can threaten our Luna or the young Alpha. The pack's response was immediate and fierce, growls of agreement, the scraping of chairs as wolves shifted restlessly, an almost tangible wave of protective energy directed toward Liam and me. Enough, Nicholas said quietly, but his voice cut through the rising tension like a blade. Tonight is for welcoming our family home. Business can wait. The tension deflated immediately, replaced by the warm atmosphere from before. I was beginning to understand just how much control Nicholas wielded, how completely his pack trusted his leadership. Dinner was a revelation. The food was incredible, clearly prepared by someone with serious culinary skills, but it was the dynamics around the table that fascinated me. Despite the obvious hierarchy, there was genuine affection between pack members. Conversations flowed easily, including good-natured teasing of their alpha that Nicholas took with remarkably good humor. Liam was the star of the evening, charming everyone with his questions and observations. He seemed completely comfortable with the attention, and I watched several pack members practically melt when he offered to share his stuffed wolf with a shy teenage girl who'd been staring at him from across the room. He's going to fit right in, Susan murmured to me as we watched Liam demonstrate to a group of fascinated adults how Mr. Wolf could do tricks. It's amazing how adaptable children are, I said. This morning he was a regular little boy in a regular small town. Tonight he's holding court with a pack of werewolves like it's the most natural thing in the world. Wolf shifters, Susan corrected gently, then smiled. And he's not entirely regular, is he? His instincts are telling him these are his people. Home. As if he'd heard us, Liam looked over and gave me a brilliant smile. Mama, did you know that Uncle Dave can turn into a really big wolf? He said maybe tomorrow he'll show me if it's okay, with you and Daddy. Uncle Dave. My heart did something complicated at the easy way Liam had already started claiming these people as family. We'll see, sweetheart, I said. Maybe after you've settled in a little more. The evening wound down naturally as children started getting sleepy and adults began clearing dishes with the easy efficiency of people who'd done this many times before. Several pack members stopped by our table to introduce themselves personally, and I found myself genuinely liking these people who had welcomed us so warmly. Bath time, I think, I said as Liam started rubbing his eyes. I'll show you where everything is, Susan offered, but Nicholas stood. I'd like to help, if that's okay, he said quietly. I've missed 3 years of bedtime routines. The simple statement hit me right in the chest. Here was this powerful, wealthy alpha who commanded absolute loyalty from 40-plus supernatural beings, and what he wanted most was to help give his son a bath. Of course, I said. Liam's bathroom was bigger than my entire bathroom back in Portland, with a deep tub that he declared perfect for swimming, and more towels than 3 people could use in a month. But what struck me most was watching Nicholas, with our son, patient, gentle, completely focused on making Liam feel safe and loved. "Daddy, will you read me a story?" Liam asked as Nicholas lifted him out of the tub and wrapped him in a towel that looked like it cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "I'd love to," Nicholas said, and I could see the emotion he was trying to keep controlled. The bedtime routine in Liam's new room felt surprisingly natural. Nicholas sat in the chair beside the bed reading from a book about a little wolf who got lost and found his pack, while I tucked Liam in and kissed his forehead. "Mama?" Liam said sleepily. "I like it here. It feels like the home I was supposed to have." "I'm glad, baby," I whispered, smoothing his hair. "And Daddy reads really good stories." "Better stories than Mama?" Nicholas asked with mock concern. Liam considered this with 3-year-old seriousness. "Different stories. Mama tells the best princess stories, but you tell the best wolf stories. I need both kinds." Nicholas caught my eye over Liam's head, and the look that passed between us was full of wonder and something deeper. We were doing this. We were actually becoming a family. "Good night, cub," Nicholas said softly, kissing Liam's forehead. "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, Mama. I love you." "We love you too," I said, and realized I was speaking for both of us without even thinking about it. We left Liam's door cracked open and moved into my sitting room, where a fire had been lit in the stone fireplace and someone had left a bottle of wine with 2 glasses on the coffee table. "The pack thinks of everything," Nicholas said, noticing my surprised look. "They do this for everyone?" "They do this for their Luna," he said quietly. "You're not just anyone, Tanya. You're the alpha's mate. That makes you one of the most important people in their world." I curled up on one end of the large sofa, suddenly feeling the weight of the day. It's a lot to process. This morning I was Tanya Morrison from Portland, single mother with a normal job and a normal life. Tonight I'm Luna of a wolf pack with a mate I barely know and a son who's apparently supernatural royalty. Nicholas poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one before settling on the other end of the sofa, careful to maintain some distance between us. "Do you regret it? Coming here?" I considered the question, sipping the wine, which was, predictably, excellent. "No," I said, surprising myself with how certain I sounded. "Scared, yes. Overwhelmed, definitely. But not regretful. This feels right, somehow. Like maybe all the pain and confusion of the last 3 years was leading to this moment." "I felt the same way," Nicholas said quietly. "When I saw you in that grocery store, when I realized Liam was mine, it was like everything finally made sense. The reason I could never bring myself to formalize things with Scarlett, the reason nothing ever felt quite right. I was waiting for you." "About Scarlett," I said, needing to understand this threat to our new family. "What exactly are we dealing with?" Nicholas's expression grew serious. "She's the daughter of the Alpha of the Eastern Territories pack, one of the most powerful packs on the continent. For the past year, our pack councils have been negotiating an alliance that would be sealed by our mating bond. Arranged marriage. Essentially, yes. It made sense politically, combining territories, sharing resources, presenting a united front against the less organized packs that have been causing trouble in recent years. I felt a stab of something that might have been jealousy. And personally?" Nicholas met my eyes steadily. "There was never anything personal about it, Tanya. Scarlett is beautiful, intelligent, well-trained in pack politics. She would have made a capable Luna. But there was no connection, no spark. I kept delaying, finding reasons to postpone, because something felt wrong about the whole arrangement. And now I know why. You can't fake a mate bond, can't manufacture that kind of connection. What I feel when I'm near you, what my wolf recognizes in you. He shook his head. It's everything I was missing with Scarlet. I set down my wine glass, needing to ask the question that had been worrying at me all day. What if I'm not ready for this? The mate bond, I mean. I understand that it's real, that there's some kind of supernatural connection between us, but Nicholas. I barely know you. 3 years ago we had one night together, and now suddenly we're supposed to be destined partners? You're right, he said, and his ready agreement surprised me. Just because we're mates doesn't mean you have to trust me immediately, or that we have to rush into anything you're not comfortable with. But the pack expects. The pack expects me to protect and provide for my mate and our son, Nicholas said firmly. How we handle the personal side of our relationship is between us. If you need time to get to know me, to decide how you feel about all this, then we have time. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. It's not that I don't feel the connection, I do. It's just that the last time I trusted someone completely, he broke my heart so thoroughly I didn't think I'd ever recover. David, Nicholas said, and there was a low growl in his voice that made me think he was not a fan of my ex-fiancé. David, I confirmed. I thought I knew him, thought we had something real. Finding him with Sarah that night, it shattered something in me. I swore I'd never be that vulnerable again. Nicholas was quiet for a moment. I can't promise I'll never hurt you, he said finally. But I can promise that I'll never betray you the way he did. Mate bonds don't work that way, you're part of me now, Tanya. Hurting you would be like hurting myself. Is that what this is? I asked, gesturing between us. The way I feel when you're close, the way my magic responds to your presence? Part of it. The mate bond affects everyone differently, but there's usually a physical component, heightened awareness, attraction, the need to be close. There's also an emotional aspect, increased empathy, protective instincts, the ability to sense each other's moods. As if to prove his point, I could feel his tension level rising as we talked about sensitive topics, could sense his careful control over his protective instincts. And if we decide to complete the bond? I asked, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. Then we become permanently connected. We'll be able to sense each other across distances, share strength when needed, and our lifespans will synchronize. But Tanya, he leaned forward, his eyes intense, it has to be your choice. A forced mate bond never holds, and I won't have you with me unless you truly want to be here. I studied his face, looking for any sign of deception or manipulation. All I saw was patience, understanding, and an attraction so strong it made the air between us feel charged. I want to try, I said quietly. I want to see if this can work, if we can build something real together. But slowly. I need to know you, trust you, before I can make that kind of permanent commitment. The smile that spread across Nicholas's face was radiant. Slowly is perfect. We have all the time in the world, Tanya. And in the meantime, I get to watch you and Liam settle into pack life, get to learn what makes you happy, get to earn your trust the right way. And Scarlet? His expression hardened. Scarlet is my problem to handle. She won't get near you or Liam, I promise you that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping wine and watching the fire crackle in the hearth. Despite everything, the supernatural revelations, the political complications, the threats we were facing, I felt more at peace than I had in years. Thank you, I said softly. For what? For giving me space to figure this out. For not pressuring me. For making Liam so happy. I paused. For being nothing like what I expected when I found out about the mate bond. What did you expect? I considered the question. Honestly? Some kind of caveman mentality. You're mine now, deal with it. Instead you're offering me time and patience and a choice in how this develops. Nicholas laughed, a rich sound that made something flutter in my chest. Well, I am trying to woo my mate, not terrorize her into submission. Where's the fun in that? Woo me? I asked, amused. Absolutely. I plan to court you properly, Tanya Morrison. Flowers, candlelit dinners, long walks through the territory, meaningful conversations. The whole romantic package. Even though we're already connected by some supernatural bond? Especially because of that. The mate bond gives us the foundation, but everything else, love, trust, partnership, that we have to build ourselves. I looked at this man who had turned my world upside down in the span of a single day, and felt something that had been frozen in my chest for 3 years begin to thaw. I'd like that, I said. Being courted, I mean. Good, Nicholas said, standing and extending his hand to me. Because I plan to start tomorrow. I let him help me to my feet, and for a moment we stood close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, smell that clean, masculine scent that made my pulse quicken. Good night, Tanya, he said softly, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. Good night, Nicholas. He moved toward the connecting door to his suite, then paused. Sweet dreams. And if you or Liam need anything during the night, anything at all, just call out. I'll hear you. After he was gone, I sat back down on the sofa and finished my wine, staring into the dying fire. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, learning pack dynamics, understanding my role as Luna, figuring out how to protect Liam from the supernatural politics that seemed determined to swirl around him. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't facing those challenges alone. I had a mate who was willing to be patient with my fears, a pack who had welcomed us with open arms, and a son who was finally getting the chance to know his father. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was ours. And that was enough to build on. I woke to the sound of hushed voices and the smell of coffee drifting through the connecting door between our suites. For a moment, I lay still in the unfamiliar but incredibly comfortable bed, trying to orient myself. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a forest I was still getting used to calling home. Pack territory. My mate's territory. Our territory now. The voices grew clearer as I became more alert, Nicholas's deep rumble and Liam's higher chatter, punctuated by what sounded like genuine laughter. My heart did something complicated at the easy intimacy in their conversation, at the obvious bond already forming between father and son. And then Mr. Wolf decided he wanted to see what pancakes taste like, Liam was saying with the kind of animated enthusiasm that meant he was telling one of his elaborate stories. Did he like them? Nicholas asked, playing along with complete seriousness. He loved them. But he said wolf pancakes would be even better because they'd have meat in them. Wolf pancakes, huh? I'll have to ask our cook about that. I smiled despite myself and padded to the window, pulling back the curtains to get my first real look at the territory in daylight. The view took my breath away, endless forest stretching toward distant mountains, with a river winding through the valley below. It was wild and beautiful and completely unlike anywhere I'd ever lived. A soft knock on the connecting door interrupted my thoughts. Tanya? Are you awake? Come in, I called, quickly smoothing my hair and checking that my pajamas were decent. Nicholas appeared in the doorway with Liam perched on his shoulders, both of them grinning. Good morning, he said, his eyes warm as they took me in. Someone was very excited to show you his new favorite breakfast spot. Mama. Daddy made coffee and there's a balcony with birds. Liam announced. Real birds, not just pictures. That sounds wonderful, I said, accepting the mug Nicholas offered. The coffee was perfect, exactly the right strength, with just a hint of cream. How did you know how I like it? Lucky guess, he said, but something in his expression suggested it was more than that. Probably that mate bond thing he'd mentioned, letting him sense what I needed. We were thinking, Nicholas continued, that after breakfast we could take a walk around the territory. Let Liam meet some of the other pack families, show you both around your new home. Your new home. The phrase sent a little thrill through me that I tried not to examine too closely. I'd like that, I said. But first, I should probably make myself presentable. I don't think pajamas are appropriate Luna attire. Actually, Nicholas said, his voice dropping to that intimate tone that made my skin tingle, you look beautiful. But Susan left some clothes for you, things that will be more practical for walking through the woods. He gestured toward the sitting room, where I could see several shopping bags arranged on the coffee table. She thought you might want options until we can arrange a proper shopping trip. That's very thoughtful. I was touched by the pack's continued kindness, by how hard they were trying to make me feel welcome. The pack takes care of its own, Nicholas said simply. And you're ours now, whether you've fully accepted it or not. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered me. Instead, it sent warmth spreading through my chest. After I'd showered and changed into dark jeans and a soft green sweater that fit perfectly, we made our way down to the main lodge's breakfast room. It was smaller than the formal dining hall from the night before, with large windows overlooking a garden and a more intimate arrangement of tables. Several pack members were already there, including Dave and Susan, who waved us over to their table. As we approached, I noticed the way conversations quieted slightly, the respectful attention that followed our movement through the room. Good morning, Luna, Susan said warmly as we sat down. Did you sleep well? Very well, thank you. I was still getting used to the title, to the way people looked at me with a mixture of respect and curiosity. And our young alpha? Dave asked, ruffling Liam's hair. Ready for your first day of pack life? Uncle Dave, Daddy said maybe I could see you turn into a wolf today. Liam said, bouncing slightly in his chair. Dave looked to Nicholas and me for permission. Only if your parents are comfortable with it. Shifting can be intense for humans to witness the first time. He's not entirely human, I said quietly. And I think he needs to understand this part of himself. Nicholas reached under the table and squeezed my hand. After breakfast, then. In the meadow behind the lodge where there's plenty of space. Breakfast was a relaxed affair, with pack members stopping by our table to introduce themselves and welcome us properly. I was struck by how normal it all felt, families chatting about their plans for the day, children laughing and playing between tables, the comfortable rhythm of a community that genuinely cared about each other. So what exactly does being Luna mean? I asked Susan quietly as Nicholas and Dave discussed some pack business. Besides the obvious? Susan smiled. It means you're the heart of the pack, the emotional center that balances Nicholas's authority. You'll help resolve disputes, support pack members through difficult times, organize celebrations and traditions. Some Lunas also take on specific responsibilities, education, healing, security, based on their strengths. And if I have no idea what my strengths are in this context? Then we'll figure it out together. Every Luna finds her own way to lead. After breakfast, we gathered in the meadow Susan had mentioned. It was a beautiful clearing surrounded by tall pines, with wildflowers scattered across the grass and morning sunlight filtering through the canopy. Are you sure about this, Cub? Dave asked, crouching down to Liam's level. Seeing someone shift for the first time can be scary. I'm not scared, Liam said with 3-year-old confidence. Your family. Family doesn't hurt family. Dave looked at me with something like awe. He understands pack dynamics instinctively. The wolf in him recognizes what you are, Nicholas said, wrapping his arm around my waist in a gesture that felt completely natural. He trusts you because his instincts tell him you're safe. Dave moved to the center of the clearing and began removing his clothes with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this thousands of times. I felt heat rise in my cheeks and looked away, but Nicholas's low chuckle made me realize my discomfort was obvious. It's practical, not sexual, he murmured in my ear. Clothes don't survive the shift. The sound that filled the clearing was unlike anything I'd ever heard, bones cracking and reforming, muscles stretching, a low growl that seemed to come from deep in Dave's chest. When I finally looked back, a massive gray wolf stood where the man had been. Liam gasped, but he didn't seem frightened. Instead, he took a step forward, his small hand reaching toward the wolf before stopping and looking at me for permission. "It's okay," I said softly. "But let him come to you." The wolf, Dave, approached slowly, his head lowered in a non-threatening posture. When he was close enough, Liam reached out and touched his muzzle with the kind of reverence most people reserved for sacred things. "You're beautiful," Liam whispered. "And you smell like pack and forest and home." The wolf made a sound that might have been agreement, then very gently nuzzled Liam's cheek. The bond between them was instant and obvious, and I felt tears prick my eyes at the sight of my son finally connecting with his supernatural heritage. "He's perfect," Nicholas said quietly, his arm tightening around me. "They both are." After Dave shifted back and dressed, we continued our tour of the territory. Nicholas showed us the school where pack children learned alongside human subjects about their heritage, the training grounds where wolves practiced both fighting and control, the workshops where pack members created everything from furniture to weapons. "It's like a small city," I said as we watched a group of teenagers practicing what looked like martial arts under the supervision of an older woman with silver-streaked hair. "That's exactly what it is," Nicholas replied. "We're completely self-sufficient here. We have our own power grid, water system, medical facilities, everything we need to live independently of human infrastructure." "And everyone who lives here is pack?" "Everyone who lives here permanently, yes. We have human employees who work in our businesses, but they don't know about our other nature. They think this is just a very successful commune." As we walked, I began to notice something strange happening. Plants we passed seemed to perk up slightly, flowers turning toward me as if I were a source of sunlight. When I paused to admire a patch of wildflowers that looked a little wilted, they brightened almost immediately. "Your Fey abilities are responding to the territory," Nicholas observed, watching a rosebush burst into fuller bloom as we passed. "The land recognizes your power. Is that normal?" "I don't know. I've never had a Fey mate before." His smile was warm, intimate. "We're going to be figuring out a lot of things together." We were heading back toward the main lodge when Nicholas's phone rang. His expression grew serious as he listened to whoever was on the other end. "When?" he asked tersely. "How many?" A pause. "No, absolutely not. Double the perimeter guards and make sure everyone knows to stay alert." He hung up and turned to us, his alpha mask firmly in place. "We need to get back to the lodge. Now." "What's wrong?" I asked, instinctively moving closer to Liam. "That was our border patrol. Scarlet's pack has been spotted about 20 miles south of our territory. She's not alone." The walk back to the lodge felt different now, charged with tension. I could see pack members receiving some kind of communication, probably through their pack link, something Nicholas had mentioned but I didn't fully understand yet. The easy atmosphere from earlier had been replaced by watchful alertness. "Is she coming here?" I asked as we reached the main building. "Not directly. Not yet. But she's making a statement, letting us know she's not going to disappear quietly." Nicholas held the door for us, his hand settling protectively on my lower back. "Dave is calling an emergency pack meeting. You and Liam will stay in our suite with security guards outside." "No," I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "If this involves Liam and me, then I need to understand what we're dealing with. Tanya, pack meetings can get heated. I'm your mate. You're Luna. If Scarlet is threatening our family, then I have a right to be part of the discussion about how to handle it." Nicholas studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right. Susan can watch Liam and you'll come to the meeting. But if things get too intense, then I'll leave. I'm not trying to prove anything, Nicholas. I just need to understand the situation so I can make informed decisions about my son's safety. Our son, he corrected gently. And yes, you absolutely have the right to be there. The pack meeting was held in a conference room I hadn't seen before, with a large table surrounded by chairs and maps of the local area covering the walls. About 15 wolves were present, the core leadership of the pack, I realized, based on the way they carried themselves. As we entered, the conversation stopped and everyone turned to look at me. I felt the weight of their attention, the assessment in their eyes as they tried to figure out what kind of Luna I would be. Before we begin, Nicholas said, his voice carrying easily through the room, I want to make something clear. Tanya is my mate and your Luna, whether the mating bond has been completed or not. She has every right to be part of discussions that affect her and our son. A few nods, no arguments. These wolves clearly trusted their alpha's judgment. Now, Nicholas continued, moving to stand beside a large map, what exactly are we dealing with? Dave stepped forward. Border Patrol spotted a convoy of vehicles about 2 hours ago. 6 SUVs, probably 30 to 40 wolves total, camping in the valley south of Copper Ridge. They're not trying to hide their presence. Scarlet? Nicholas asked. She's there. Our scouts confirmed visual identification. What does she want? Asked a woman with short blonde hair whom I hadn't met yet. Nicholas's jaw tightened. To force a confrontation. To prove that she won't be dismissed easily. She can't honestly think she has a claim anymore, said another voice. The alpha has found his true mate. Logic doesn't always apply when someone's pride has been wounded, Nicholas said grimly. Scarlet has spent a year planning to be Luna of this pack. She's not going to accept being replaced without a fight. What kind of fight? I asked, speaking up for the first time. The room went quiet, all attention focused on me. I felt Nicholas's hand settle on my shoulder, offering support. There are several possibilities, he said carefully. She could challenge you directly for the right to be Luna. She could challenge me for the right to be Alpha, though that's unlikely since she'd need a male wolf to stand for her. Or, I prompted. Or she could try to eliminate you and Liam, clearing the path for her original plan to proceed. The protective surge that went through me was so strong that every plant visible through the conference room windows suddenly burst into fuller bloom. Several pack members looked around in amazement as flowers outside the window doubled in size and vibrancy. She can try, I said quietly, and there was steel in my voice that I'd never heard before. But she'll find that I'm not as easy to eliminate as she might think. The smile that spread across Nicholas's face was fierce and proud. That's my Luna, he said softly. Around the table, I could see pack members reassessing me, their expressions shifting from polite acceptance to something approaching respect. What's our next move? Dave asked. We wait, Nicholas said. Let them make the first move. In the meantime, we increase security around the compound, especially around Tanya and Liam. No one travels alone, and everyone stays within the inner perimeter unless it's pack business. And if she does challenge me? I asked. Then we deal with it when it happens. But Tanya. Nicholas turned to face me fully, his eyes intense. You need to understand that a Luna challenge isn't just political. It can involve physical combat. Are you prepared for that possibility? I thought about my son, about the life we were building here, about the pack that had welcomed us with such warmth. Then I thought about someone trying to take it all away. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to protect my family, I said. All of my family. The murmur of approval that went around the room told me I'd said exactly the right thing. As the meeting broke up, Nicholas walked me back toward our suite, his arm around my waist. You realize what you just committed to, he asked softly. I committed to being your Luna. To protecting our son and our pack. I looked up at him, seeing pride and something deeper in his expression. I meant every word. I know you did. That's what makes you perfect for this role. We were almost to our door when he stopped suddenly, turning to face me in the quiet hallway. Thank you, he said. For what? For standing with me in there. For claiming your place as Luna instead of hiding from it. For being exactly the partner I didn't know I was looking for. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. We were standing close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Nicholas, I said softly, not sure what I was asking for. He stepped closer, his hands coming up to frame my face. I know we agreed to take this slowly, he murmured, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. But right now, I really want to kiss you. Then kiss me, I whispered. The kiss was electric, gentle but confident, full of promise and barely leashed passion. When we finally broke apart, I felt like every nerve ending in my body was humming with awareness. Wow, I breathed. Definitely wow, Nicholas agreed, his voice rough with desire he was clearly fighting to control. We stood there for a moment longer, just looking at each other, before the sound of Liam's laughter from inside our suite broke the spell. We should. I started.
Yeah.
We should, Nicholas agreed, but neither of us moved for several more heartbeats. Finally, he stepped back, giving me space to breathe and think clearly again. Tonight, he said, after Liam's asleep, would you like to have dinner with me? Just us, somewhere private where we can talk without interruptions? I'd like that very much, I said, and meant it completely. As I watched him walk toward his own suite, I touched my lips where I could still feel the warmth of his kiss. Everything was changing so fast, my understanding of myself, my place in the world, my feelings for the man who was supposed to be my destined partner. But for the first time since this all began, the changes didn't feel overwhelming. They felt like coming home. The afternoon passed in a blur of introductions, conversations, and small moments that made me realize just how much my life had changed in the span of 48 hours. After our kiss in the hallway, a kiss that had left me feeling like every nerve ending was still humming with electricity, Nicholas had reluctantly returned to his alpha duties while I spent time getting to know the pack members who would become my new family. Susan had taken it upon herself to be my guide, introducing me to the other women in the pack with a warmth that made me feel genuinely welcome rather than like an obligation to be endured. Luna responsibilities aren't as overwhelming as they might seem, she assured me as we walked through what she called the residential section of the compound, a cluster of beautifully designed homes that ranged from cozy cottages to larger family residences. Most of it is intuitive, especially for someone with your natural empathy. My natural empathy? The way you read people, respond to their needs. I watched you at breakfast this morning, you knew exactly how to make that shy teenager feel included in the conversation, and you sensed that Mrs. Patterson was worried about something before she even spoke. I thought back to breakfast, realizing she was right. There had been subtle cues I'd picked up on without even thinking about it, an awareness of emotional undercurrents that felt as natural as breathing. Is that part of being Fae? I asked. Possibly. Or maybe it's just part of being you. Either way, it's exactly what this pack needs in a Luna. We stopped at a playground where several pack children were playing under the watchful eye of their parents. Liam had immediately gravitated toward a group of kids his own age, and I watched with a mixture of pride and amazement as he seamlessly integrated into their games. Look at him, Susan said softly. He's not just playing with them, he's leading them. Even at 3 years old, he has that natural alpha presence. It was true. Despite being the newcomer, Liam had somehow become the center of the group's activity, organizing an elaborate game that seemed to involve a lot of running and hiding and what sounded like hunting calls. The other children followed his lead with the kind of instinctive respect that couldn't be taught or forced. Is that normal for someone his age? For a potential future alpha with mixed heritage? I honestly don't know. But it's fascinating to watch. As we observed the children's play, I began to notice something else. The flowers and plants around the playground were more vibrant than they should have been for late afternoon, their colors almost glowing in the dappled sunlight. When Liam ran past a patch of wildflowers, they seemed to straighten and reach toward him, as if drawn by some invisible energy. His Fey abilities are developing too, I murmured, watching a butterfly land on his outstretched hand and stay there for several moments before he gently encouraged it to fly away. Both sides of his heritage are awakening, Susan agreed. The question is how they'll balance each other as he grows. A commotion near the edge of the playground caught my attention. 2 older boys, maybe 7 and 8 years old, had gotten into some kind of dispute that was escalating toward actual conflict. I could see their parents starting to move in to intervene, but before anyone could reach them, Liam was already there. "Hey," I heard him say in that serious way 3-year-olds had when they were trying to be grown up. "Fighting makes the flowers sad. Look." He pointed to a nearby rosebush that had, indeed, seemed to droop slightly during the boys' argument. As they looked at it, then back at Liam, the tension between them visibly dissolved. "Sorry, Liam," one of them said. "We didn't mean to make the flowers sad." "It's okay. But maybe we could play the hiding game instead? I'm really good at finding people." And just like that, the potential conflict was resolved and the boys were running off together to join the larger group game. Did he just? I started. Use both his alpha authority and his Fey connection to nature to mediate a dispute? Yes. Susan's voice was filled with wonder. I've never seen anything like it. Neither had I, and the implications were both thrilling and terrifying. My 3-year-old son was already showing signs of the kind of power that could reshape supernatural politics, exactly the kind of power that would make him a target for people like Scarlet. We should probably head back, I said, feeling a sudden need to have Liam closer to the safety of the main lodge. It's getting close to dinner time. But as we gathered the children and started walking back, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. A figure standing at the edge of the forest, barely visible through the trees, but definitely watching us. Watching Liam. "Susan," I said quietly, not wanting to alarm the children. "Is that one of our guards?" She followed my gaze and immediately went tense. "No. Dave." She called out, and I saw the beta materialize from seemingly nowhere, moving with the kind of fluid speed that reminded me these people were predators as well as protectors. "Scout," Dave said tersely after scanning the treeline. "Scarlet's pack. They're testing our perimeter." The children were quickly ushered toward the main lodge by their parents, with Dave and several other pack members forming a protective escort around our group. I kept Liam close to my side, trying not to let him see how frightened I was by this reminder that we were being watched, evaluated, possibly hunted. "Are we in immediate danger?" I asked Dave as we reached the safety of the lodge. "No. They're gathering information, not preparing an attack. But it confirms what we suspected, Scarlet's not going to approach this situation diplomatically." The early evening passed in a controlled bustle of activity. Dinner was served in the smaller dining room rather than the formal hall, with pack members sitting in family groups that somehow managed to maintain both intimacy and the kind of alert vigilance that spoke of warriors ready for action. Nicholas appeared just as we were finishing our meal, looking every inch the alpha in dark jeans and a black sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders. But it was the way his eyes immediately found mine and Liam across the room, the visible relief on his face when he confirmed we were safe, that made my heart do something complicated in my chest. "How are my 2 favorite people?" he asked, sliding into the chair beside me with a natural grace that made it seem like he belonged there, like we'd been sharing family dinners for years instead of days. "Daddy." Liam launched himself toward Nicholas with a kind of enthusiasm that spoke of complete trust and growing love. "I made friends with the other kids, and I helped them stop fighting, and there was a butterfly that stayed on my hand for a really long time." "That sounds like quite an afternoon," Nicholas said, catching Liam easily and settling him on his lap. "Did you have fun with Mama?" "Mama's really good at talking to people. Everyone likes her." Liam's observation was matter-of-fact but pleased, as if he'd been worried about how I'd fit into his new world. Everyone likes her because she's special, Nicholas said, his eyes meeting mine over Liam's head. Just like you are. The warmth in his voice made me feel like the most important person in the world, and I found myself smiling despite the lingering tension from our encounter with Scarlet's scout. After dinner, Nicholas walked us back to our suite, his hand resting on my lower back in a gesture that felt both protective and possessive. The hallways were busier than usual, with pack members moving with purpose that suggested increased security measures were being implemented. Is everything secure for the night? I asked as we reached our door. As secure as we can make it. Guards on every perimeter, pack members checking in regularly through the mind link, and early warning systems in place. He paused, studying my face. Are you having second thoughts about staying here? No, I said, surprising myself with how quickly and firmly the word came out. This is where we belong. I can feel it. Even with Scarlet making threats? Especially with Scarlet making threats. She wants to intimidate us, make us doubt our place here. I won't give her that satisfaction. The proud smile that spread across Nicholas's face was radiant. That's my Luna, he said softly, then glanced at Liam, who was starting to droop against my side. Bath time for this young alpha, I think. The bedtime routine was becoming natural already, Nicholas and I working together to get Liam ready for sleep, sharing the small domestic tasks that made us feel like a real family. When it came time for stories, Liam insisted on hearing about the alpha who found his lost pack, a tale that Nicholas told with such warmth and detail that I suspected it had personal meaning. Daddy, Liam said sleepily as Nicholas tucked him into bed, are you and Mama going to get married? The question caught both of us off guard. Nicholas glanced at me before answering carefully. Marriage is something that happens when two people love each other very much and want to be together forever. Right now, Mama and I are getting to know each other better. But you're mates, Liam said with the kind of matter-of-fact certainty that only children possessed. Uncle Dave told me that mates are supposed to be together always. Uncle Dave is right, Nicholas said gently. But being mates is just the beginning. Mama and I need to make sure we really understand each other before we make that kind of promise. Liam considered this with 3-year-old seriousness. Okay. But I hope you decide soon, because I really like having a daddy. I really like being your daddy, Nicholas replied, his voice thick with emotion. No matter what happens between Mama and me, that will never change. Okay? Okay. Liam yawned hugely. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Mama. I love you both. We love you too, sweetheart, I said, kissing his forehead and breathing in that sweet scent that was uniquely his, baby shampoo and something wilder that I was beginning to recognize as his supernatural nature. After Liam was settled, Nicholas and I stood in the hallway between our suites, suddenly awkward in a way we hadn't been all day. So, he said, his hands shoved in his pockets like a teenager asking for his first date. Dinner. Are you still interested? Very interested, I said, then felt heat rise in my cheeks at how eager I sounded. Good. Give me 20 minutes to set everything up, and then. He gestured toward his suite. I promise it will be worth the wait. 20 minutes later, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror trying to decide if the dress Susan had included in her shopping selections was too formal or not formal enough. It was a simple navy blue sheath that hit just above my knees, elegant but not overdressed, and it made me feel feminine and confident in a way I hadn't experienced in years. When I knocked on the connecting door, Nicholas answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting right there for me to arrive. He'd changed into dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, and the sight of him made my mouth go dry. You look beautiful, he said softly, his eyes warm as they took me in. So do you, I replied, then felt myself blush at the admission. His suite was larger than mine, with a sitting area that opened onto a private balcony overlooking the forest. He'd set up dinner for two on the balcony table, complete with candles and what looked like real china. The whole scene was intimate and romantic without being over the top, exactly the kind of thoughtful gesture that made my heart race. "This is perfect," I said as he held my chair for me. "I wanted our first real dinner together to be special," he said, settling across from me. "Even if we're eating it surrounded by guards and security protocols." The food was incredible, clearly prepared by someone with serious culinary skills, but it was the conversation that made the evening magical. We talked about everything and nothing, his business empire and how he'd built it, my life in Portland and the job I'd loved, our hopes for Liam's future, our fears about the challenges ahead. "Tell me about your pack," I said over dessert, something chocolate and decadent that probably had more calories than I usually consumed in a day. "How did you become alpha so young?" Nicholas's expression grew serious. "The previous alpha was my father. He died in a challenge fight when I was 26, barely old enough to take over, but the pack needed strong leadership during a time of territorial disputes with neighboring packs. That must have been terrifying." It was. But I had good advisors, and the pack was willing to trust me while I learned. "We've built something stable here, something worth protecting." And Scarlet's alliance would have strengthened that stability. Theoretically, yes. Two powerful packs joining forces, sharing resources and territory, presenting a united front against external threats. He paused, studying my face. "Are you asking if I regret walking away from that arrangement?" The question was loaded with implications, and I realized I did need to know the answer. "Are you? This arrangement with me and Liam has complicated your life enormously. Maybe it would have been easier to just..." "Tanya." Nicholas reached across the table and took my hand, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that sent electricity up my arm. "Let me be very clear about something. Finding you, learning about Liam, bringing you both home, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Any complications that come with it are worth dealing with. Even if it means war with Scarlet's pack? Even then. Though I'm hoping it won't come to that." His grip on my hand tightened slightly. "But if it does, I want you to know that this pack will fight to protect you and Liam with everything we have." The intensity in his voice made me believe him completely, and I felt something tight in my chest loosen. "Thank you. For all of this, but especially for making me feel safe enough to trust again." "You don't have to thank me for that. It's what mates do for each other, create a safe space where you can be completely yourself." We finished dinner as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that made the whole scene feel like something out of a fairy tale. When Nicholas suggested we move to the sitting area for coffee, I found myself nodding even though I knew I should probably return to my own suite and maintain some boundaries. But the truth was, I didn't want the evening to end. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged, with exactly the person I was meant to be with. The sitting area was comfortable and intimate, with a fireplace that cast dancing shadows on the walls and furniture that invited lounging and quiet conversation. Nicholas poured coffee from a service that had appeared while we were on the balcony, and I curled up on one end of the sofa with my cup, acutely aware of every movement he made. "So what happens now?" I asked, voicing the question that had been building all evening. "With us, I mean. We can't take this slowly forever, not with pack politics and supernatural threats and a 3-year-old who's already planning our wedding." Nicholas settled on the other end of the sofa, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, but far enough away to give me space to breathe and think clearly. "What do you want to happen?" he asked quietly. It was a fair question, and one I'd been avoiding thinking about too deeply. But sitting here with him, feeling safer and more content than I had in years, the answer was surprisingly clear. "I want to see where this goes," I said. "I want to get to know you better, learn to trust you completely, figure out if what we have is just supernatural connection or something deeper. And if it's something deeper? Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." I met his eyes steadily. "But Nicholas, I need you to understand, I won't be pushed or pressured or manipulated into completing a mate bond just because it's expected or convenient. When I make that choice, it has to be because I genuinely want to spend my life with you, not because I'm your destined partner. I wouldn't want it any other way, he said firmly. A forced bond never holds, and even if it did, I don't want you with me unless you choose to be here. Good. Then we understand each other. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping coffee and watching the fire. Despite everything, the threats, the political complications, the uncertainty about our future, I felt more at peace than I had in years. Tanya, Nicholas said softly, and something in his voice made me look at him more closely. There's something I want you to know. What? This afternoon, when you stood up in that pack meeting and claimed your place as Luna, when you faced down the possibility of physical combat to protect Liam. He shook his head in wonder. I've never been more proud of anyone in my life. You were magnificent. The warmth in his voice made my cheeks heat, but it also made me realize something important about myself. I surprised myself too. 3 years ago, I would have hidden behind you and let you handle everything. But now you're a mother. And a fae. And a Luna who won't back down from a fight. Now I'm someone who knows what she's fighting for, I corrected. And I'm not going to lose it without a battle. Nicholas set down his coffee cup and moved closer to me on the sofa, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, could smell that clean masculine scent that made my pulse quicken. Can I kiss you again? He asked softly. Instead of answering, I closed the distance between us, my hands coming up to frame his face as our lips met. This kiss was different from the one in the hallway, deeper, more confident, full of promise and possibility rather than just attraction. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless and warm and completely certain about at least one thing. This is going to work, I said softly. I don't know how or when or what challenges we'll have to face, but this thing between us, it's real. Yes, Nicholas agreed, his forehead resting against mine. It is. Outside, I could hear the distant sounds of pack members going about their evening routines, the comforting background noise of a community settling in for the night. Inside, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged, with exactly the person I was meant to be with. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Scarlett's continued threats, the complex politics of supernatural alliances, the ongoing question of what Liam's mixed heritage would mean for his future. But tonight, I was content to sit here with my mate, planning a future I was finally brave enough to believe in. I woke to the sound of rain against the windows and the soft murmur of voices from the sitting room. For a moment, I lay still in the pre-dawn darkness, remembering every detail of the evening before, Nicholas's thoughtful dinner, our honest conversation, the kiss that had left me feeling like every cell in my body was humming with possibility. The voices grew clearer as I became more alert, and I recognized Nicholas's deep rumble mixed with what sounded like Dave's more urgent tones. Something was wrong. I slipped on a robe and padded to the connecting door, knocking softly before pushing it open. Nicholas was standing by the window fully dressed despite the early hour, his phone pressed to his ear while Dave paced nearby with the kind of restless energy that suggested bad news. How long ago? Nicholas was asking whoever was on the other end. His eyes found mine as I entered, and the tension in his expression made my stomach clench. No, don't engage. Fall back to the secondary perimeter and maintain visual contact only. He hung up and immediately moved toward me, his hands settling on my shoulders in a gesture that was both comforting and protective. What's happening? I asked, though I suspected I already knew. Scarlett's pack moved closer during the night, Dave said grimly. They're now camped less than 5 miles from our territory, and our scouts report they've been joined by at least 20 more wolves. How many total? Nicholas asked. 60 plus, maybe 70. It's a significant force. I felt my protective instincts surge, and somewhere in the distance, I could swear I heard thunder rumble even though the storm outside seemed too gentle for that kind of sound. Are they preparing to attack? Not yet, Nicholas said carefully. But they're making a statement. And? He hesitated, glancing at Dave before continuing. They sent a message. What kind of message? Dave pulled out his phone and showed me a text that made my blood run cold. The pretender and her mongrel cub have until sunset to leave pack territory voluntarily. After that, I'll remove them myself. She's challenging me, I said, the words coming out steadier than I felt. She's trying to intimidate you, Nicholas corrected, but his jaw was tight with barely controlled anger. The use of the word mongrel alone is enough to justify a declaration of war. What does this mean legally? In terms of pack law? Dave and Nicholas exchanged a look that suggested this was something they'd already discussed. It means she's issuing a formal challenge for Luna's status, Dave said. If you accept, it would be settled by single combat. Winner takes all. And if I don't accept? Then she'll likely order an attack on the entire territory, claiming you're an illegitimate Luna who refuses to defend your position. The protective energy that had been building in me since I'd read the message suddenly exploded outward, and every plant visible through the sitting room windows burst into violent bloom, their colors so vibrant they seemed to glow even in the gray dawn light. Let her try, I said softly, and there was something in my voice that made both men go very still. Nicholas moved closer, his hand cupping my cheek. Tanya, you don't understand what you're agreeing to. A Luna challenge isn't just political posturing. Scarlet is a trained fighter with years of combat experience. She's bigger than you, stronger, and she's been preparing for pack leadership her entire life. And I'm a mother protecting her child, I said firmly. I'm a fae whose powers are still awakening. And I'm a Luna who won't be bullied out of her rightful place. Mama? Liam's sleepy voice came from the doorway to my suite, and I turned to see him standing there in his pajamas, clutching his stuffed wolf. Why does everything smell like angry? Before I could answer, he padded over to us with that uncanny ability children had to sense when adults were upset. Nicholas immediately scooped him up, settling him against his chest with practiced ease. There are some people who want to cause trouble, Nicholas explained gently. But Mama and I are going to make sure you stay safe. Bad people? Liam asked, his dark eyes, so much like his father's, growing serious. People who don't understand that families belong together, I said, moving to stand beside Nicholas so we formed a protective circle around our son. But they can't hurt us if we're strong and smart and stick together. Liam studied both our faces with 3-year-old intensity, then nodded as if he'd made some important decision. Okay. Can I have pancakes? The simple request in the middle of such a tense conversation made me smile despite everything. Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you dressed and go down for breakfast. I'll take him, Nicholas offered. You should rest a little longer after last night. But I shook my head. No. If Scarlet wants to see what kind of Luna she's challenging, let her scouts report back that I'm not hiding in my room. I'm going to breakfast with my family, and I'm going to act like I belong here, because I do. The dining room was busier than usual for such an early hour, with pack members gathering in small groups and conversations that stopped abruptly when we entered. But instead of the awkward silence I might have expected, I was met with nods of respect and murmurs of the "Good morning, Luna," that made it clear where the pack's loyalty lay. Susan appeared at our table almost immediately, her usually calm demeanor replaced by the kind of focused intensity that suggested she was operating in crisis mode. How are you feeling about all this? She asked quietly as she poured coffee for Nicholas and me. Honestly? Terrified but determined, I replied. This woman is threatening my son. I can't just roll over and let her win. Good. Because the pack needs to see that their Luna is strong enough to stand up to external threats. Susan's smile was fierce. And between you and me, I think Scarlet has seriously underestimated what she's dealing with. As if summoned by our conversation, Dave appeared at our table with a grim expression and another phone in his hand. She's escalating, he said without preamble. Her beta just called the main lodge directly. She wants to meet with you, Nicholas, at the territory border at noon. Neutral ground to discuss terms. Terms for what? I asked. Probably trying to negotiate your departure in exchange for avoiding bloodshed, Nicholas said, his voice carrying that alpha authority that made people sit up and pay attention. She thinks if she can separate us, she can still salvage her original plan. Are you going to meet with her? We're going to meet with her, Nicholas corrected, his emphasis on the plural making his position clear. Whatever she has to say, she can say it to both of us. Is that safe? Susan asked. If this is some kind of trap, then we spring it on our terms, in our territory, with our pack backing us up, Nicholas said firmly. But I won't give Scarlett the impression that my mate needs to be protected from unpleasant conversations. The breakfast crowd was thinning out as pack members went about their daily routines, but I noticed that none of them seemed to be leaving the immediate compound area. Everyone was staying close to home, ready to respond if needed. Daddy, Liam said, tugging on Nicholas's sleeve, can I play with the other kids today? I think today might be a good day to stay close to Mama and me, Nicholas said carefully. Maybe we can find some fun things to do inside. But before Liam could respond, a commotion near the dining room entrance caught everyone's attention. A pack member I didn't recognize, a young man who looked like he'd been running hard, burst through the doors with news that made the entire room go silent. Alpha, he called out, not bothering with formal protocol. Border Patrol reports a convoy approaching the main gate. 3 vehicles, flying a white flag, but... He paused, breathing hard. Scarlett Winters is in the lead car. She's not waiting until noon. The reaction was immediate and intense, chairs scraping as pack members stood, low growls of displeasure, the kind of restless energy that spoke of predators preparing for a fight. But Nicholas's voice cut through it all with absolute authority. Everyone remained calm. Dave, I want security teams in position but not visible. Susan, take the non-combatants to the secondary shelter areas. His eyes found mine across the table. Tanya, Liam goes with Susan. No, I said, standing with the kind of certainty that surprised even me. If she's here to see me, then she sees me. But Liam stays safe. Mama? Liam's small voice cut through the adult tension. Is the bad lady coming here? I knelt beside his chair, taking his small hands in mine. Yes, sweetheart. But she's not going to hurt you or me or Daddy. I promise. How do you know? Because I'm your mama, and mamas are very, very strong when they need to protect their babies. Liam considered this with 3-year-old seriousness, then nodded. Like a mama wolf? Exactly like a mama wolf, Nicholas said, his voice warm despite the tension radiating from every line of his body. Now, you're going to go with Aunt Susan for a little while, okay? Just until Mama and I finish talking to the bad lady. The next few minutes passed in controlled chaos as the pack implemented what were clearly well-rehearsed security protocols. Children and non-combatants were efficiently relocated to secure areas, while the adult pack members who remained arranged themselves in strategic positions throughout the main lodge. I found myself standing beside Nicholas at the front entrance, watching through the windows as 3 black SUVs pulled into the circular drive. My heart was pounding, but underneath the fear was something harder, a determination that had been building since I'd first learned about the supernatural world my son would inherit. Are you ready for this? Nicholas asked quietly. As ready as I can be. The vehicles stopped, and figures began emerging from each one. I counted quickly, at least 15 wolves, all of them moving with the kind of predatory grace that marked them as experienced fighters. But it was the woman who stepped out of the lead vehicle that commanded my attention. Scarlett Winters was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often were, tall and elegant, with platinum blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail and ice blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore dark jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly rent in Portland, and she carried herself with the absolute confidence of someone who had never been told no in her life. She's younger than I expected, I murmured. And more dangerous, Nicholas replied. Don't let the polished exterior fool you. She's killed 3 challengers for her current position in her own pack. The information should have been more frightening than it was. Instead, I felt my Fey powers responding to the threat, energy building beneath my skin like the pressure before a lightning strike. Scarlet approached the lodge entrance with 4 of her pack members flanking her, leaving the rest positioned strategically around the vehicles. When she was close enough to speak without shouting, she stopped and looked directly at me. "So," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the morning air, "you're the little human who thinks she can steal what's mine." "I'm the Fae who mated the alpha of this territory," I replied, stepping forward so that I was slightly in front of Nicholas. "Which makes this my home and these my people to protect." Scarlet's eyes narrowed at the word of Fae, and I could see her reassessing whatever intelligence she'd gathered about me. "Interesting," she said. "Though I suppose it explains why you're fool enough to think you can stand against me." Her gaze shifted to Nicholas. "You're making a mistake, Alpha Stone. The alliance our packs negotiated would benefit everyone involved. Don't throw away years of careful planning for a piece of tail and her bastard cub." The insult hit exactly as it was intended to, and the surge of protective fury that went through me was so intense that every piece of glass in the lodge windows began to vibrate. Around the courtyard, I could see Scarlet's wolf stepping back nervously as flowers burst into bloom with such violence that petals flew through the air like snow. "Choose your next words very carefully," Nicholas said, his voice carrying the kind of lethal quiet that preceded violence. "You're standing in my territory, insulting my mate and my son. My pack's hospitality only extends so far." But Scarlet wasn't deterred. If anything, my obvious reaction seemed to amuse her. "Your mate," she repeated mockingly. "Tell me, has she actually accepted the bond? Or are you just hoping that proximity and pretty words will eventually wear down her resistance?" The question hit closer to home than I wanted to admit, but I managed to keep my expression neutral. "My relationship with Nicholas is none of your concern." "Oh, but it is. You see, until that bond is completed, you're not really his mate at all. You're just a woman he's sleeping with who happens to have given birth to his cub." Scarlet's smile was cold and sharp. "Which means our original arrangement is still technically valid." "The hell it is," Nicholas growled, but Scarlet held up a hand. "Let me finish. I'm prepared to be generous. You and the boy leave pack territory today, voluntarily, and I'll ensure your safety and financial security for the rest of your lives. Refuse, and I'll challenge you for Luna status under traditional pack law. Winner takes the alpha and the territory. Loser." She shrugged. "Well, let's just say there's a reason these challenges are usually to the death." The threat hung in the air between us like a blade, and I could feel the tension radiating from every pack member within hearing distance. This was the moment that would define everything, not just my relationship with Nicholas, but Liam's future, the pack's stability, and my own understanding of who I was becoming. "I accept," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the courtyard with absolute certainty. Scarlet's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Just like that? You don't need time to think about it, to discuss it with your alpha?" "I don't need anyone's permission to defend my family," I replied. "And I certainly don't need time to think about whether I'm going to let some spoiled pack princess threaten my son." The insult landed exactly as intended, and Scarlet's composure cracked slightly, her eyes flashing with anger. "Very well. Traditional challenge rules, single combat, no weapons, fought to yield or death. The challenge ground will be the meadow at Sunset Ridge at precisely sunset today." "Accepted," I said without hesitation. "Tanya," Nicholas started, but I cut him off with a look. "This is my choice to make," I said firmly. "And I'm making it." Scarlet was already turning back toward her vehicles, her pack members falling into formation around her. But she paused at the door of her SUV to deliver one final threat. "Enjoy your last day as pretend Luna," she called out. "By tomorrow morning, your cub will be calling me mother." The vehicles pulled away, leaving us standing in the sudden quiet of the courtyard. Around us, pack members were slowly emerging from their defensive positions, their expressions ranging from pride to concern to outright fear. "Well," Dave said, appearing at our side with the kind of timing that suggested he'd been listening to every word. "That went about as well as expected." "She's going to try to kill me," I said, the reality of what I'd agreed to finally sinking in. "Yes," Nicholas replied grimly. "She is. Which is why we have exactly 8 hours to make sure you're ready to kill her first." The casual way he said it should have shocked me. Instead, I found myself nodding with the same grim determination. Scarlett had made one critical error in her planning. She'd threatened my son. And there wasn't a force in any supernatural realm that was going to keep me from protecting him. That reminded me just how efficiently a well-organized pack could mobilize when their Luna was threatened. Before I'd even fully processed what I'd agreed to, I found myself surrounded by pack members offering everything from combat advice to emotional support. "First things first," Dave said, his beta authority cutting through the chaos with practiced ease. "We need to assess what we're working with. Tanya, what exactly can you do with your Fae abilities?" It was a fair question, and one I wasn't entirely sure how to answer. Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. Plants respond to me, I can heal minor injuries, and when I'm emotional, things tend to explode into bloom. "That's more than you think," Susan said, appearing at my side with a leather-bound journal and a determined expression. "Fae magic is tied directly to life force and natural energy. In the right circumstances, that can be devastatingly powerful." Nicholas moved closer, his presence both comforting and protective. "We need to go somewhere private to work on this. The training grounds behind the lodge should give us enough space." "I want to see Liam first," I said, the thought of my son making my chest tight with fear and determination. I need to make sure he understands what's happening." "Of course," Nicholas said gently. "But Tanya, we don't have much time. 8 hours sounds like a lot, but preparing for combat against an experienced fighter." "I know." I looked around at the faces surrounding me, pack members who had welcomed me with such warmth just days ago, now prepared to help me fight for the right to remain their Luna. "Thank you. All of you. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you accepted me into your pack." "Actually," said Riley, the young mother I'd met the day before, "it's exactly what we signed up for. A Luna who will fight to protect her family and her pack. That's the kind of leader we want." The murmur of agreement from the assembled wolves made my throat tight with emotion. These people, my people now, were willing to stand behind me even when I wasn't entirely sure I could win. Susan had been right about the secure areas being comfortable. Liam was in what appeared to be a well-appointed playroom with several other pack children, supervised by 2 of the pack's older women who clearly took their protective duties seriously. He looked up when we entered, his face lighting up with pure joy at seeing his parents. "Mama. Daddy. Look, I made a castle." He held up an elaborate construction of wooden blocks that actually did resemble a medieval fortress. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, settling beside him on the carpet and trying to keep my voice steady. "Can you tell me about it?" "It's for protecting the princess and the little prince from bad guys," Liam explained with 3-year-old seriousness. "See? The walls are really tall, and there's a moat, and guards everywhere." The innocence of his play, so clearly inspired by our current situation, made my heart ache. "Liam, I need to talk to you about something important, okay?" He set down his blocks and gave me his full attention, those dark eyes that were so much like his father's growing solemn. "Is it about the bad lady?" "Yes, it is. You remember how I told you that mamas are very strong when they need to protect their babies?" Huh. Well, the bad lady thinks she can take you and daddy away from me. So I'm going to have to show her that she's wrong." "Like fighting?" I glanced at Nicholas, who nodded encouragingly. "Like fighting, yes. But it's a special kind of fighting with rules, and there will be lots of people there to make sure it's fair. Liam considered this with the kind of intense focus that still amazed me in someone so young. Are you going to win? I'm going to do everything in my power to win, I said honestly. Because I love you and Daddy more than anything in the whole world, and I'm not going to let anyone take our family away. Good, Liam said with perfect confidence. Because you're the strongest mama ever. The simple faith in his voice nearly broke me. I pulled him into my arms, breathing in his familiar scent of little boy and something indefinably wild that spoke of his dual heritage. I love you so much, baby, I whispered into his hair. I love you too, Mama. And when you win, can we have ice cream to celebrate? Absolutely, I promised, trying not to think about what would happen if I didn't win. Leaving Liam was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but I knew that every minute I delayed was a minute less I had to prepare for the most important fight of my life. The training grounds were more extensive than I'd realized, with multiple areas set up for different types of combat practice. Nicholas led me to a secluded section surrounded by tall trees, where Susan was waiting with what appeared to be several ancient books and a collection of stones and crystals. I've already called Veronica, she announced without preamble. She's on her way with some of the old texts from Silverbrook Manor. But until she gets here, we start with what I know. The good news is that Fae abilities are instinctive, you don't need years of training to access your power. The bad news is that without proper control, you could hurt yourself as much as your enemy. Dave appeared from the direction of the main lodge, carrying what looked like intelligence files. I've got information on Scarlet's fighting style, he said, spreading papers across a wooden table. She's favored brute force in her previous challenges, overwhelming physical attacks, going for quick kills rather than drawn-out battles. How quick? Nicholas asked grimly. Her longest recorded fight was 8 minutes. Her shortest was 43 seconds. The numbers should have been more intimidating than they were. Instead, I felt that strange calm settling over me again, the same certainty that had prompted me to accept the challenge in the first place. Show me what I need to know, I said to Susan. For the next 2 hours, I learned things about myself that I never could have imagined. Under Susan's patient guidance, I discovered that my Fae abilities were far more extensive than simple plant manipulation. I could draw energy from the earth itself, channel it through my body, and release it in ways that ranged from healing to destructive. Feel the connection, Susan instructed as I knelt in the center of a circle of stones, my palms pressed flat against the ground. The earth recognizes you as part of its system. You're not taking from it, you're working with it. The sensation was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Energy flowed up through my hands, filling my body with a warmth that was both gentle and incredibly powerful. When I opened my eyes, the grass beneath my palms had grown several inches, and flowers were blooming in a perfect circle around where I knelt. Good, Susan said approvingly. Now, instead of encouraging growth, try redirecting that energy. Think about protection, about creating barriers. It took several attempts, but eventually I managed to channel the Earth's energy into something more defensive. Vines sprouted from the ground at my command, thick and strong enough to entangle an opponent. Thorns appeared on plants that had never grown them before. The very air around me seemed to shimmer with protective energy. Impressive, Dave commented from where he'd been watching my practice sessions. But Scarlet won't be fighting you in a garden. The challenge ground is mostly grass and bare earth. Then we work with what's available, Nicholas said, moving to stand behind me. His presence made the energy flow even more smoothly, as if our mate bond was amplifying my abilities. What else can she do, Susan? Fae magic is largely elemental, Susan explained, consulting one of her ancient books. Earth, obviously, but also air and water if there are sources nearby. The challenge ground has a stream running through it, which gives you options. We spent another hour experimenting with different applications of my power. I learned to call mist from the stream, to make the very air heavy and difficult to breathe. I discovered that I could sense the life force of everything around me, which meant I would know exactly where Scarlet was even if she tried to hide. But it was the defensive applications that proved most interesting. When I was truly focused, I could create a kind of energy shield around myself, not visible, but strong enough to deflect physical attacks. It wouldn't last long, but it might give me the edge I needed in a critical moment. Time, Dave called out as the sun reached its zenith. 4 hours until sunset. The announcement sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. Half my preparation time was gone, and while I felt more confident about my abilities, I was still facing a trained killer with years of combat experience. Food, Nicholas said firmly. You need to keep your strength up. We made our way back to the main lodge, where someone had prepared what looked like enough food to feed an army. Pack members had been coming and going all day, sharing intelligence, doing everything they could to help their Luna prepare for battle. Any word from Scarlet's camp? I asked Dave as we sat down to eat. They've moved closer to the challenge ground. Our scouts report she's been training all morning, basic combat drills, nothing we haven't seen before. He paused, his expression growing more serious. But Tanya, there's something else. She's not fighting alone. What do you mean? Pack law allows for a Luna challenge to be witnessed by representatives from both packs. But Scarlet has requested that the Eastern Pack Council be present as official observers. Nicholas went very still beside me. The full council? 7 members, including her father. If she wins, they'll want to ratify the new pack alliance immediately. And if she loses? Then they'll probably withdraw the alliance offer permanently. This isn't just about Luna's status anymore, it's about the future of both packs. The weight of what I'd agreed to was becoming clearer by the hour. This wasn't just a fight for my position or even my life. The outcome would affect the political structure of supernatural communities across the region. No pressure, I muttered, trying to inject some humor into the increasingly tense atmosphere. Nicholas reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine in a gesture that was both intimate and strengthening. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. We could leave. Take Liam and disappear. I have resources, connections in other countries. Scarlet would never find us. The offer was tempting, and I could see in his eyes that he was serious. But I thought about Liam growing up in hiding, never knowing his father's pack, never understanding his heritage. I thought about the pack members who had welcomed us so warmly, who would suffer under Scarlet's leadership. I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago, running from conflict instead of facing it. No, I said firmly. We're not running. This is our home now, our family. I won't let her take that away from us. The smile that spread across Nicholas's face was radiant with pride and love. Around the table, I could see similar expressions on the faces of the pack members who had joined us for lunch. That's our Luna, Dave said with satisfaction. The afternoon passed quickly as we refined strategy and worked on specific techniques that might give me an advantage against Scarlet. Veronica had arrived within an hour of Susan's call, bringing not just ancient texts but generations of family knowledge about Fey combat techniques. Your mother Isabella was incredibly powerful in battle, Veronica said as she guided me through more advanced applications of my abilities. Fey magic isn't just about plants and healing, in the right hands, it can be devastatingly effective against supernatural opponents. Especially wolf shifters. She taught me techniques I never would have discovered on my own, how to draw power directly from the Earth's magnetic field, how to create barriers of pure energy, how to sense and exploit the weaknesses in an opponent's life force. Most importantly, she showed me how to tap into the deeper well of power that came with my royal bloodline. Remember, Veronica said as we practiced one final technique, Scarlet may be a trained fighter, but she's never faced ancient Fey magic in combat. Use that surprise to your advantage. Susan had also consulted with what appeared to be every book on supernatural combat in the pack's extensive library, compiling a list of tactics that had proven effective in historical conflicts between different supernatural species. Remember, she said as we walked toward the challenge ground as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, you're not trying to match her strength for strength. You're faster, more flexible, and you have abilities she's never encountered before. Use that. The challenge ground was a natural amphitheater carved into the hillside, with the stream Dave had mentioned running along one edge and tall trees forming a natural boundary. Pack members from both territories were already arriving, taking positions on opposite sides of the meadow like spectators at some ancient gladiatorial contest. Scarlet was already there, dressed in form-fitting black clothes that looked designed for combat. She was stretching with the fluid grace of someone supremely confident in her physical abilities, and even from a distance, I could see the predatory focus in her movements. She's bigger than I thought, I murmured to Nicholas as we approached the designated preparation area. Size isn't everything in combat, he replied, but I could hear the concern in his voice. Remember what you learned today. Trust your instincts, use your abilities, and don't let her get close enough for a killing blow. The Eastern Pack Council had indeed arrived, 7 wolves in expensive suits who radiated the kind of authority that spoke of generations of supernatural politics. They took their positions at a table that had been set up at one end of the meadow, clearly intending to observe every detail of the coming battle. As sunset approached, a pack elder I hadn't met before stepped into the center of the challenge ground, his voice carrying clearly in the evening air. We gather tonight to witness a formal challenge for Luna status, he announced. Scarlet Winters of the Eastern Pack challenges Tanya Morrison of the Northern Pack. The challenge will be fought under traditional rules, single combat, no weapons, concluded by yield or death. Are both challengers prepared to proceed? I am prepared, Scarlet called out, her voice carrying absolute confidence. All eyes turned to me, and I felt the weight of everyone's expectations, fears, and hopes settling on my shoulders. In the distance, I could see Nicholas watching me with an expression of love and terror that made my heart clench. But it was the memory of Liam's small hands in mine, his absolute faith that his mama was strong enough to protect him, that gave me the courage to step forward. I am prepared, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the meadow with surprising strength. The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson that seemed appropriate for what was about to unfold. Around the meadow, supernatural beings who had lived for centuries watched with the kind of attention reserved for events that would be remembered long after tonight was over. This was it. Everything I'd learned, everything I'd become, everything I hoped to build with Nicholas and Liam, it all came down to the next few minutes. Scarlet was already moving toward the center of the circle, her movements predatory and confident. As I walked forward to meet her, I felt my Fae abilities responding to my emotional state, power building beneath my skin like electricity before a storm. The woman across from me had trained for this her entire life. She was bigger, stronger, more experienced, and absolutely ruthless in her determination to take what she considered rightfully hers. But she had made one critical miscalculation. She had threatened my son. And there was no force in any realm, supernatural or otherwise, that was stronger than a mother protecting her child. The challenge circle felt smaller once I was standing in it, facing Scarlet across 20 feet of grass that might as well have been a chasm between two different worlds. The evening air was thick with tension and the scent of supernatural power, hers radiating predatory confidence, mine humming with newly awakened Fae energy that made the very ground beneath my feet respond with subtle vibrations. Last chance to yield, Scarlet said conversationally, rolling her shoulders with the casual ease of someone preparing for a pleasant workout rather than a fight to the death. Save us both some time and effort. The only thing I'm yielding tonight is your claim to my family, I replied, settling into the defensive stance Susan had drilled into me all afternoon. Scarlet's laugh was cold and sharp. Your family? You mean the alpha who was promised to me and the mongrel cub you used to trap him? The insult hit exactly as she intended, and I felt my Fae power surge in response to the spike of protective fury. Around the meadow's edge, flowers that had been dormant in the cooling evening air suddenly burst into brilliant bloom, their colors so vivid they seemed to glow in the fading light. Impressive light show, Scarlet commented, apparently unimpressed by the display. But flowers won't save you from what's coming. The pack elder raised his hand. Challengers ready? I nodded, feeling the energy of the earth flowing up through my feet, connecting me to every growing thing in the meadow. Across from me, Scarlet dropped into a combat crouch that spoke of years of training and absolute confidence in her abilities. Begin. Scarlet moved like liquid violence, closing the distance between us in 3 impossibly fast strides. Her first strike came in low and hard, aimed at my ribs with enough force to crack bone. But I was ready for her, drawing on the defensive techniques Veronica had taught me. The energy shield I threw up was invisible but solid, and Scarlet's fist struck it with a sound like thunder. The impact sent shockwaves through both of us, but where she stumbled back in surprise, I used the moment to create distance. "What the hell?" she started, but I was already moving. The vines erupted from the earth at my command, thick and strong and moving with purpose. They wrapped around Scarlet's ankles, seeking to bind her in place, but she was faster than I'd anticipated. With supernatural grace, she leaped clear of the grasping plants and came at me again, this time from the side. Her claws, when had she shifted partially, raked across my shoulder, shredding fabric and drawing blood. The pain was immediate and fierce, but it also served to focus my power in ways that pure emotion couldn't. I spun away from her follow-up strike and called to the stream that bordered the meadow. Water responded to my summons, rising from its banks in a spiraling column that I sent crashing toward Scarlet like a liquid battering ram. She dodged with fluid grace, but the water soaked the ground where she'd been standing, turning stable earth into treacherous mud. When she landed, her footing slipped just enough to throw off her next attack. "Clever," she acknowledged, wiping water from her face. "But you're still just playing defense. Eventually, you'll tire, and then I'll end this." She was right, and we both knew it. Defensive magic was draining, and Scarlet had stamina built from years of combat training. I needed to change tactics, to go on the offensive in a way she wouldn't expect. That's when I remembered what Veronica had taught me about sensing life force. I opened my face senses fully, letting them expand beyond the immediate battle to encompass every living thing in the meadow. The result was overwhelming. I could feel the heartbeat of every pack member watching from the sidelines, the slow pulse of the ancient trees, the rapid flutter of night birds disturbed by our conflict. But most importantly, I could feel Scarlet. Her life force burned bright and fierce, typical of a healthy supernatural in her prime. But there were also weak points, old injuries that hadn't healed quite right, places where her energy was slightly diminished. Information I could use. She came at me again, this time feinting left before striking right, her claws aimed at my throat. But instead of throwing up another energy shield, I twisted away and placed my palm flat against her extended arm. The technique Veronica had shown me was called life drain, though that made it sound more sinister than it actually was. I wasn't trying to kill Scarlet by stealing her energy, I was simply redirecting some of it, using her own power against her. The effect was immediate. Scarlet's strike lost force mid-swing, and she stumbled as sudden weakness flooded through her arm. It only lasted seconds, but those seconds were enough for me to create significant distance and plan my next move. "Impossible," she breathed, staring at her arm as if it had betrayed her. "Fae don't have that kind of power." "Ancient Fae do," I said, feeling more confident than I had since the fight began. "And apparently, I'm more ancient than either of us realized." Her eyes narrowed with the kind of focus that meant she was finally taking me seriously as a threat. When she attacked again, it was with the full force of her supernatural abilities unleashed. She moved faster than human eyes could follow, her partial shift giving her enhanced strength and speed. Her strikes came in combinations now, claws, fists, kicks, each one potentially lethal. I gave ground steadily, using every defensive technique I'd learned while looking for an opening. The opportunity came when she overcommitted to a particularly vicious swipe aimed at my midsection. I dropped low, sweeping her legs with a move Nicholas had shown me hours earlier, and when she went down, I pressed my advantage. Both palms against the earth, I called upon every growing thing in the meadow. The response was beyond anything I'd achieved in practice. Vines erupted from the soil in dozens of places, creating a writhing forest of grasping tendrils. Flowers bloomed with such violence that their petals filled the air like snow. The very grass beneath our feet grew tall enough to tangle legs and obscure vision. But it was the thorns that made the real difference. Every plant I touched with my power sprouted them, long, sharp, and harder than steel. They turned the meadow into a maze of natural weapons that only I could navigate safely. Scarlet found herself trapped in a thicket that seemed determined to shred her to ribbons. She fought clear with supernatural strength, but not without cost. Blood seeped from dozens of shallow cuts, and her movements were becoming more cautious, more defensive. "You can't hide behind parlor tricks forever," she snarled, her perfect composure finally cracking. "This is still a physical fight, and I'm still stronger than you." She was right about being stronger. Even wounded and tired, Scarlet was a formidable opponent with years of combat experience. But she was wrong about the parlor tricks. I wasn't hiding behind my Fey abilities. I was finally learning to use them. The next phase of the battle was different. Instead of trying to match Scarlet's physical prowess, I used my connection to the meadow to stay one step ahead of her attacks. When she struck at where I was already somewhere else, guided by the whispered warnings of grass and flowers that tracked her every movement. She grew increasingly frustrated as her attacks met empty air, her tactical discipline beginning to fray. That's when she made the mistake I'd been waiting for. Desperate to land a decisive blow, she launched herself at me in a full-power leap that would have been devastating if it connected. But instead of dodging away, I stood my ground and did something she never could have anticipated. I absorbed the impact. Not with an energy shield this time, but by becoming temporarily one with the earth itself. Her supernatural strength met the immovable resistance of bedrock and ancient root systems. The collision was spectacular and entirely one-sided. Scarlet bounced off me like she'd struck a mountain, her momentum carrying her backward into the thorny maze I'd created. This time, when the vines reached for her, she was too stunned to avoid them entirely. "Yield," I said as she struggled against bonds that grew stronger the more she fought them. "This fight is over, Scarlet." "Never," she spat, her eyes blazing with the kind of fury that came from a lifetime of getting everything she wanted. "I don't lose to pretenders and their bastard cubs." The insult to Liam was the last straw. Every lesson in control and restraint that Veronica and Susan had drilled into me vanished in a surge of protective rage, so pure it felt like lightning in my veins. The power that flowed through me wasn't drawn from the earth this time, it came from somewhere deeper, older, connected to the very foundations of Fey magic. When I spoke, my voice carried harmonics that made the air itself vibrate with power. "You will never threaten my son again." The energy that erupted from me wasn't visible, but its effects were unmistakable. Every piece of metal in the meadow, belt buckles, jewelry, the ceremonial knives carried by the pack elders, began to resonate with a sound like singing crystal. The very air grew thick and heavy, charged with so much power that sparks danced between my fingers. Scarlet's eyes went wide with something I'd never seen in them before, fear. "What are you?" she whispered. "I'm a mother protecting her child," I said, advancing on her with deliberate steps. "I'm a Luna defending her pack. And I'm done playing games with spoiled children who think they can take what's mine." The vines holding Scarlet began to glow with soft silver light, and where they touched her skin, she cried out in pain. Not physical pain, something deeper, as if the very essence of what she was rebelled against the purity of Fey magic. "Yield," I commanded, and this time there was no request in my voice. Only certainty. Scarlet looked around the meadow, at her pack members who were backing away from the display of power, at the Eastern Pack Council whose expressions ranged from shock to outright terror, at the Northern Pack wolves whose eyes blazed with pride and loyalty. Finally, her gaze found mine, and what she saw there broke the last of her resistance. "I yield," she said, the words barely above a whisper. The moment the admission left her lips, I felt the combat magic drain out of me like water from a broken dam. The glowing vines released their hold, the supernatural charge in the air dissipated, and suddenly I was just Tanya Morrison again, exhausted, bleeding from several cuts, but victorious. The silence that followed stretched for several heartbeats before it was broken by a sound I'd never heard before, the howl of an entire pack acknowledging their Luna. Nicholas's voice rose above the others, deep and powerful and filled with such pride and love that it made my knees weak. One by one, every member of the northern pack joined the song, their howls blending into a harmony that spoke of acceptance, loyalty, and belonging. Even some of Scarlet's own pack members added their voices to the chorus, recognizing the display of power they just witnessed. When the howling finally died away, the pack elder who had officiated the challenge stepped forward with an expression of awe that would have been comical under other circumstances. "Luna Tanya Morrison is victorious," he announced, his voice carrying clearly across the meadow. "The challenge is concluded." I barely had time to process the words before Nicholas was there, pulling me into his arms with a desperation that spoke of hours spent fearing he might lose me forever. "You magnificent, terrifying, perfect woman," he murmured against my hair. "I've never been so proud or so scared in my entire life." "It's over," I said, leaning into his strength as the adrenaline finally began to fade. "She can't threaten our family anymore." "No," he agreed, his arms tightening around me. "She can't." Dave appeared at our side, his usually composed demeanor cracked by what might have been relief. "The Eastern Pack Council wants to speak with you," he said. "Both of you." "I think they're prepared to renegotiate the alliance terms." I looked over at where Scarlet was being helped to her feet by her pack members. She looked diminished somehow, her earlier confidence replaced by something that might have been bewilderment. She'd built her entire identity around being stronger, faster, more ruthless than her opponents. Losing to someone she'd dismissed as a pretender had shaken her to her core. "What happens to her now?" I asked. "That's up to you," Nicholas said quietly. "As the victor, you have the right to set the terms of her defeat. Traditional pack law would have allowed me to demand her death. She'd certainly been prepared to kill me. But as I looked at her, all I felt was pity for someone who had never learned that there were more important things than power and position. "Exile," I said finally. "She leaves pack territory tonight and doesn't return. Ever." Scarlet's head snapped up, her eyes meeting mine with something that might have been gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me. Thank the fact that I'm not the monster you thought I was." She nodded once, then turned and walked away without another word. Her pack members followed, and within minutes, the Eastern Pack contingent was loading into their vehicles for the long drive home. The Eastern Pack Council approached more cautiously, their earlier arrogance replaced by the kind of wariness that came from witnessing power they hadn't expected. Luna Morrison, the lead councilman, said with a respect that had been notably absent earlier. "We may have misjudged the situation." "Yes," I said simply. "You did. We would be honored to discuss new terms for an alliance between our packs. Terms that acknowledge your unique position and abilities." I looked at Nicholas, who nodded slightly. Pack politics were still his domain, but it was clear that my role in those politics had changed dramatically tonight. "We'll be in touch," I said diplomatically. "Right now, I have more important things to attend to. Like getting home to my son. Like celebrating with my pack. Like finally accepting that this was my life now, not something that had happened to me, but something I had chosen and fought for and won." As we walked back toward the compound, surrounded by pack members whose joy and pride were almost tangible, Nicholas slipped his arm around my waist. "So," he said conversationally, "how do you feel about completing the mate bond?" I looked up at him, seeing my own happiness reflected in his eyes. "I think," I said, "that I'm ready to make this official." His smile was radiant. "Good. Because after what I just watched, I'm more certain than ever that you're the only woman in any realm who could be my equal." "Your equal and your Luna," I corrected. "My equal, my Luna, and my mate," he agreed. "For as long as we both shall live." Behind us, I could hear pack members already planning the celebration that would undoubtedly last until dawn. Ahead of us, Liam was waiting with Susan in the main lodge, probably bouncing off the walls with excitement about his mama's victory. For the first time since this all began, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I wasn't running from my past or hiding from my future. I was exactly where I belonged, with the people who mattered most, ready to build the life I'd never dared to dream was possible. The woman who had fled her own engagement party 3 years ago was gone forever. In her place was someone stronger, braver, and infinitely more powerful. Someone who had fought for her family and won. Someone who was finally, completely, home. Epilogue, New Beginnings. 6 weeks later, I stood before the floor-length mirror in what had once been a guest suite but was now permanently mine and Nicholas's bedroom, adjusting the flowing white dress that Susan and the other pack women had insisted was perfect for a mating ceremony. The fabric was simple but elegant, with delicate embroidery along the hem that depicted intertwining vines and wolf silhouettes, a perfect representation of the union we were about to formalize. "Mama, you look like a princess," Liam announced from the doorway, where he stood fidgeting in his new dress clothes. At 3.5, he was still young enough to be impressed by fancy occasions, but old enough to understand that today was special. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, kneeling down to straighten his tiny tie. "Are you ready to be part of Daddy's and my special ceremony?" Huh. Dave said I get to carry the rings, and after we can have cake. His excitement was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile at his priorities. "That's right. And after today, we'll officially be a complete family forever." "We're already a complete family," Liam said with 3-year-old wisdom. "Today we're just telling everyone else." The simple truth of his words made my throat tight with emotion. He was right, of course. The 3 of us had been a family from the moment Nicholas had first held our son, from the first night we'd all fallen asleep together in the big bed, from every morning that began with Liam climbing between us for cuddles. But today would make it official in the eyes of both human and supernatural law. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts, and Veronica appeared in the doorway, elegant as always in deep blue silk that complemented her silver hair. "It's time," she said with a smile that held decades of love and pride. "Are you ready, my dear?" I took one last look at myself in the mirror, seeing not the broken woman who had fled her engagement party 3 years ago, but someone confident, powerful, and deeply loved. The Fae heritage that had once seemed like an impossible complication now felt like the missing piece of a puzzle finally falling into place. "I'm ready." The ceremony was being held in the meadow where I'd fought Scarlet, but today the space had been transformed into something magical. Hundreds of white flowers created natural aisles between rows of chairs filled with pack members, while strings of lights hung from the surrounding trees like captured stars. At the altar, a simple wooden arch decorated with roses and ivy, Nicholas waited with Dave at his side. He looked devastatingly handsome in his dark suit, but it was the expression on his face as he watched me walk down the aisle that made my heart race. Love, pride, desire, and something deeper, a recognition that went beyond the supernatural mate bond to something purely human and infinitely precious. The ceremony itself blended human traditions with pack rituals, creating something uniquely ours. We exchanged rings with hands that shook slightly from emotion rather than nerves, spoke vows that had been written in our own words rather than borrowed from someone else's dreams. "I promise to protect and cherish you," Nicholas said, his voice carrying clearly across the meadow, "to stand beside you as your partner and your equal, to love not just the woman you are but the woman you're still becoming." When it was my turn, I looked into his eyes and spoke the words that had been in my heart since the night he'd helped me put Liam to bed for the first time in his new room. "I promise to choose you every day," I said. "Not because of destiny or supernatural bonds, but because you've shown me that love isn't about finding someone perfect, it's about finding someone perfect for you. I promise to be your Luna, your mate, and your partner in everything that comes next." The pack elder performing the ceremony smiled as he raised his hands. "By the power vested in me by pack law and the great state of California, I now pronounce you mated for life. Nicholas, you may kiss your Luna." The kiss that sealed our bond was gentle at first, full of promise and new beginnings. But as our lips met, I felt the mate bond snap fully into place with an intensity that made the air around us shimmer with visible energy. Gasps of wonder rose from the assembled pack as flowers bloomed spontaneously throughout the meadow, their fragrance filling the evening air with sweetness. When we finally broke apart, Nicholas's eyes were glowing with golden light, and I could feel our connection singing in my blood like music. "Wow," I breathed. "Definitely wow," he agreed, his forehead resting against mine as we shared this moment of perfect connection. "Are you married now?" Liam asked loudly from where he stood beside us, causing laughter to ripple through the crowd. "Yes, sweetheart," I said, reaching for his small hand. "We're officially married now." "Good," he announced. "Can we have cake?" The reception that followed was everything I could have hoped for and more. Pack members who had welcomed me as a stranger now celebrated with me as family, sharing stories and laughter late into the night. The children ran wild between the tables while adults danced to music that ranged from classical waltzes to surprisingly good country rock courtesy of a pack member who apparently had a side career as a DJ. But my favorite moments were the quiet ones, watching Nicholas spin Liam around the dance floor while our son giggled with pure joy, seeing Susan tear up during her toast about finding your true family, feeling the warm press of pack members' hands on my shoulders as they offered congratulations and welcome. "No regrets?" Nicholas asked as we slow danced under the stars, Liam fast asleep on a pile of jackets nearby. "About what?" "About choosing this life. The complications, the supernatural politics, the fact that our son is going to grow up dealing with magic and pack dynamics instead of Little League and parent-teacher conferences." I considered the question, thinking about the path that had brought me here. The betrayal that had driven me from my old life, the night that had given me Liam, the journey of self-discovery that had led me to understand what I truly was. "Do you know what I regret?" I said finally. "I regret that it took me so long to understand that running away from problems doesn't solve them. I regret letting David and Sarah's betrayal convince me that I wasn't worthy of real love. But choosing this life, choosing you, choosing to fight for our family, I'll never regret any of that. Even when Liam hits his teenage years and starts shifting accidentally when he's upset." "Especially then," I said with a laugh. "At least we'll never have to worry about him sneaking out. We'll smell where he's been." As if summoned by our conversation, Liam stirred on his makeshift bed, blinking sleepy eyes in our direction. "Mama? Daddy? Is the party over?" "Almost, sweetheart," I said, moving to scoop him up. "Are you ready to go home?" "This is home," he said matter-of-factly, snuggling against my shoulder. "The house is just where we sleep." Once again, my son's simple wisdom cut straight to the heart of everything. Home wasn't a place, it was the people who loved you unconditionally, who chose you every day, who stood by you when the world got complicated and scary. As we walked back toward the main lodge through the cooling night air, surrounded by the sounds of our pack family still celebrating, I realized that the woman who had stood in that hotel room 3 years ago, reading David's cruel note, would never have imagined this ending to her story. That woman had thought love was about being perfect for someone else, about molding yourself into what they wanted you to be. She'd believed that betrayal was the end of everything, that trust once broken could never be rebuilt. She'd been wrong about all of it. Real love, I'd learned, was about finding someone who saw your flaws and your strength and chose to build something beautiful with both. It was about trust that deepened over time, about partnership that grew stronger through challenges rather than weaker. "What are you thinking about?" Nicholas asked softly as we reached our front door. "I'm thinking," I said, shifting Liam to one arm so I could take his hand, "about how grateful I am that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened." "David's betrayal?" "David's betrayal led me to you. To Liam. To understanding what I really am and what I'm capable of. If he hadn't broken my heart, I never would have been in that bar, never would have had the courage to spend the night with a stranger, never would have discovered that I'm strong enough to build something amazing from the pieces of a broken dream." Nicholas brought our joined hands to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to my wedding ring. I love you, Luna Morrison Stone. I love you too, Alpha Stone. Both of you, I added, smiling down at our son who was pretending to be more asleep than he actually was. Forever and always? Nicholas asked, echoing the words from our vows. Forever and always, I confirmed. As we stepped across the threshold into our home, truly ours now, legally and supernaturally and in every way that mattered, I felt the last piece of my old pain fall away. The woman who had been betrayed, who had run, who had spent 3 years building walls around her heart, was finally, completely, at peace. In her place was someone stronger, braver, and infinitely more powerful. Someone who had found her true mate, claimed her rightful place, and built a family worth fighting for. Someone who was exactly where she belonged. And if the future held new challenges, and with a half-fae, half-wolf son and our position in supernatural politics, it certainly would, we'd face them together. As partners, as mates, as a family. Just as it should be. And there we have it, dear listeners, the complete story of Tanya and Nicholas, where betrayal transformed into destiny, and where love truly conquered all. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and allowing Fated Hearts to be part of your day. There's something magical about sharing these romantic journeys together, and I hope Tanya's strength, Nicholas's devotion, and little Liam's precious spirit touched your heart as much as they touched mine. If this audiobook swept you away, please show your love by hitting that like button. It truly helps other romance lovers discover these stories. I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What was your favorite moment? Did you love Tanya's fierce independence? Were you rooting for Nicholas from the start? And what did you think of that jealous she-wolf drama? Don't forget to subscribe to Fated Hearts and turn on notifications because I have so many more enchanting paranormal romances coming your way. From vampire kings to dragon shifters, from witch covens to angel guardians, there's a whole supernatural world of love stories waiting for us to explore together. Speaking of future audiobooks, I want to hear from you. What supernatural romance would you like to experience next? Drop your requests in the comments, and let's build our Fated Hearts community together. Whether you're Team Vampire, Team Shifter, or Team Fae, there's room for everyone in our romantic family. Follow Fated Hearts on social media for behind-the-scenes content, character art, and sneak peeks of upcoming audiobooks. Links are in the description below. Until our next romantic adventure, remember, love is patient, love is kind, and sometimes, love is supernatural. Sweet dreams, and may your own fated heart find its perfect match. This has been Fated Hearts. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.